Good phone.
All right, good evening, everyone. The Liquor and License Commission hearing has been canceled. The meeting of the Village Board of Vernon Hills for January 5th, 2021 is going to start shortly. Due to the COVID-19 health mandates, the Village of Vernon Hills board meeting has moved to a web-based video conference using Zoom. We anticipate any future meetings held while stay-at-home orders are in effect. We'll continue to use this method. To watch via virtual meeting Zoom link, we have that posted. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, citizens wishing to address the board may email their questions or comments to social@vernonhills.org until 6:45 p.m. on the day of the meeting. So do we have any emails to recognize?
I do have one, and since we spoke last, she updated her email and wanted to be identified.
Okay.
So do you want to call the meeting to order first?
Yeah. I'd like to call the village board meeting to order. Roll call.
President Byrne,
Aye. Present.
trustees Forster,
Aye.
Schultz,
Present.
Marport,
Here.
Cook,
Here.
Oppenheim,
Here.
Takaoka.
Did we hear Craig?
I know Craig's here.
I know.
Sorry.
Here.
There you go.
Okay. We have a quorum. Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right, so do we want to acknowledge, obviously, the citizen that wishes to address the board now?
Yes, the resident's name was Paula Markowitz,
Yes.
and her email says, "Good evening. I'm a very concerned citizen who would like to remain anonymous, but want to share a few things about vaping and nicotine, flavored nicotine with you. I personally am a vapor and shop locally in Vernon Hills at the Artisan Vapor Company located at 701 North Milwaukee Avenue. I feel that it is very unfair that the village decided to have an entire presentation on flavored nicotine and vaping and the possibility of banning it in town without our local vape shop knowing about it or been given the opportunity to her. But some of what was said in the prior two village hall meetings, and I encourage this village hall and you trustees today to reach out to that company and see their side of it. I go to the Artisan Vape store many times. I'm a 38-year-old man, and I carded every single time they don't sell to minors. They're very knowledgeable and reputable and believe, just as I do, that vaping and flavored nicotines do help save lives. I feel it is only fair and just this village board reaches out and includes those in the community that would be affected by a vape ban or flavored nicotine bin, and not just do this and have meetings without the public knowing about it, people that would be affected by it. I will also be watching the video meeting tonight in full and do hope my entire email is read. A ban on vaping products could force more adults who use them as smoking alternatives to seek dangerous, unregulated products on the black market, or go back to smoking cigarettes, which kill more than 480,000 Americans every year. Vaping nicotine is an effective means for the nation's nearly 40 million smokers to quit and is safer than smoking, said David Abrams, professor of social and behavioral science at New York University and former director of the Office of Behavioral and Social Science Research at the National Institutes of Health. The whole idea is to get away from cigarettes, so the last thing you want is nasty tasting imitation flavor and harsh burn on the back of your throat, Connolly said. The flavors are designed to be so appealing to adults that they never want to return to cigarettes, he said. It's important to note flavors aren't the only reason teens are vaping. Teens who vape do prefer flavors, just like adults, but the advent of safer tobacco alternatives would attract some young people regardless of flavors. Underage tobacco use was an endemic before vaping, which reveals that the failure to enforce current laws and not the existence of products is primarily why underage use exists. And vaping is likely why we even have fewer teens who are smoking cigarettes. This year's jump in teen vaping was also accompanied by a nearly 30% reduction in teen smoking, the largest decline in decades, and teen smoking is now at its lowest rate of all time at 5.8%. The FDA is in a difficult position, but we need to make sure adult smokers have access to safer alternatives. The BMJ published a study showing that if every conventional cigarette smoker in the United States switched to e-cigarettes, 6.6 million fewer current smokers would die premature deaths. Banning flavors would interfere with everyone who's attempting to quit combustible cigarettes and would likely only reduce teen vaping as much as the ban would reduce adult vaping. Another report in the BMJ predicts that a flavor ban would reduce vaping by 11.1%, but would also increase conventional smoking by 8.3%, a terrible trade-off. And that's the conclusion.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the board?
Well, in about 5-10 minutes, we're going to cover that topic, right?
Yes, sir.
Yep. Okay. Thank you for your input. And what's the gentleman's name?
Let me go back and check that a second. Her name was Paula Markowitz.
Okay, thank you, Paula. All right. Next is official reports, village manager, flush hour.
Yes, sir. It's just the same announcement that we have been doing every board meeting for the past several months. Declaration number 20-18, which has been renamed to Declaration 21-01, is a continuation of the emergency order of the Village of Vernon Hills that was signed by Mayor Byrne back in March. Will be signed again tonight and will remain in effect until the next regularly scheduled village board meeting.
Okay. All right, next is Chief Crease, Axon Enterprise Inc., Taser 7.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to call the board attention to the Omnibus agenda includes an agreement with Axon for replacement of the village's police department Taser. And wanted to call out that this is a multi-year agreement, and I am prepared to provide more information should any of the board members want further on that. You could pull it, and we're ready to provide some further answers if there are any. I would just point out that this does waive competitive bidding, and essentially the key point there is that there is no serious competitor to this product. This is a system that we've used for many years and interfaces this latest version interfaces seamlessly with our in-car and body camera system. So just wanted to call attention to the board on that, and I am prepared to answer questions if needed. Thank you.
I've got a question concerning tasers in general. You know, today was that announcement up in Kenosha. They were talking several times about how, in fact, they had used 2 tasers prior to taking the next steps. How effective have we found the tasers to be? I know it's another tool, and I'm not suggesting we take that tool away, but what is the effectiveness? Because I'm hearing more and more that people are not being disarmed.
Sure. There's two ways I would measure effectiveness is one, sometimes it simply dissuades and it deters someone from continuing their resistance. Merely the display or the spark has been proven very effective. And then secondly, you'd really need to look at a broader set of data than just our experience, because we use it very infrequently. But the broader set of data would suggest that tasers are very effective. And in fact, I have an expert from the police department available. He could share some more on that. But I mean, you're well above 60, 70% effectiveness in general. And that's because people move when these are discharged. When they are discharged and you have connection of two probes to the offender, to the suspect, very, very effective, well above 90%.
In one of the cases, apparently they used the distance unit, the wire that propels the wire. But then the second was with a handheld where they made physical contact and they still did not achieve their level.
Yeah, I watched the entire press conference myself, Trustee Schultz, and I'm not shocked to see that there was a failure in a dynamic, violent situation. It's still a good tool to have available, because if it prevents even one use of deadly force,
Right.
It's well worth it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, I'll ask you a question, Chief, is like this time of year, is that if somebody's got heavy clothing on, does that affect the effectiveness of the taser?
Yeah, it's a great question, Mayor. I'm going to ask Commander Andy Jones, who's on with us as well, because he's a master taser instructor. I'm sure he can probably answer that with a little more specificity than I can. Andy, can you hear us okay?
Yes, sir. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, to answer your question, it does add an extra layer of challenge when we're talking heavy clothing, but that's actually part of the reason for the department looking for this upgrade to the most reliable, newest, up-to-date technology. They've learned over the years, because our current technology is about 9 years old. We've learned over the years that the type of probes we were using were not as effective on winter clothing. And the new probes in these new Taser 7s that they've developed hits with greater force. So it actually has better sticking power, and it has a better, what we call clothing disconnect override. So it does give the Taser enough power to still accomplish the goal of neuromuscular incapacitation, even in winter clothing.
Okay.
And Andy, if you could, maybe you could at least briefly mention the effects of alcohol and drug usage on the effectiveness of tasers.
So the great thing about the Taser, unlike our other less lethal use of force options, is drug-induced subjects using certain high levels of alcohol that don't feel as much pain with the pepper spray or even hands-on sometimes defeat that use of force because they just don't feel the pain. This isn't a pain compliance tool. It actually interferes with us neuromuscularly. So it locks us up. And while the subject's under the power of the taser, our officers are trained. That's when we step in, that's when we handcuff. So then even once the taser's off, they can fight all they want, but they're under control at that point. So if they're fighting, we can control them much easier because now they're handcuffed. And I don't know how many of you saw it, but you know, years ago, I was tased twice in 2 days at a public display at the mall. And it's literally when the taser's turned off, people come right back to normal and they're fine.
Thank you.
Yeah. Officer Jones, it sounds like a scene out of a movie I've seen once or twice. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well,
Do we have statistics? I'm
what's that?
sorry. Do we have statistics on how often, how many times it's been used in the last year in our police department?
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, I put together some numbers. I went over 2 years. I just wanted to lay out our last 2 years. We had 57,000 calls for service, basically, about 57,225. Of those calls, we made 716 arrests. And of those arrests, we had 5 taser uses in the last 2 years. 3 of those were actual deployments where we put darts into people, got them under control, and actually we were 100% on our deployments. They were effective every time, one of which was, and this will ring familiar in today's times, a young man attacking one of our officers with a skateboard. And the officer was able to use less lethal force to put him to the ground. We got him into handcuffs. It worked perfect. But more importantly, two of our deployments were nothing more than de-escalation, which is part of our training program, where it's a display of the taser arc or the electricity, a warning that we're going to deploy the taser, and those subjects surrendered prior to us having to use it. Because people on the street know the same thing like the mayor saw on TV. These are effective tools and the police can use them. So they sometimes see that and comply. So those are our statistics within our department alone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. What do we got? Omnibus vote agenda next?
Mayor, if I may, I'd love to update the group on the more recent storm events.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir. So yeah, I wanted to provide an update from Tuesday, December 29th through Sunday, January 3rd. Essentially, we had 3 different storm events. The very first one, very well predicted. Everyone knew it was coming in as rain, ice, sleet, with a little bit of snow. Ultimately, for that Tuesday night into Wednesday storm, we ended up getting about 2.4 inches of snow. Snow is rarely an issue. We plow snow very well. It was really more of the issue was the freeze and rain that we were dealing with. Tuesday into Wednesday, we sent our crews home early, half of the crews, because we knew the fight was going to be more towards the dinner rush hour. So the snow started at 5 o'clock. For 3 hours, it snowed. From 10 o'clock until 3 o'clock in the morning, that whole 5-hour period, it came down as freeze and rain. It hit a frozen pavement, and we really had a battle. So some of the difficulties that we had was more just dealing with the conditions we were faced with. We understand in terms of the beet juice that we put down in advance of the storm, those areas worked very well, and it bought us some quality time during the storm. The larger issue ended up being afterwards, after Wednesday, when we started to receive some temperatures of Thursday. Bear with me for a second. The temperatures started to drop on Thursday, got down to 24 degrees, and we started having things flash over. Thursdays when we had to redeploy, go to all the cul-de-sacs, scrape where we could, but it was really a challenge for us. We were able to tackle during that snowstorm, rainstorm more than anything. We were able to get to the sidewalks. They are very important to us, but our priority was the safety of the roadways, and then we took care of the sidewalks afterwards. Friday, essentially New Year's Day, we were out most of the day given the conditions. Saturday, no real issues other than early in the morning. And then Sunday, again, we had a lot of call for service on Sunday. But maybe the big picture is really maybe a quick overview of some of the things that went well, some of the procedures, and how things can be more effective. I guess in terms of the overall, we're happy with a lot of things that transpired. Overall, it wasn't during garbage days, so we didn't have any garbage totes, etc., to deal with. There weren't as many people out on the streets. In terms of accidents and the safety related things, we're glad that given the icy conditions, we really didn't see an upswing in terms of accidents and the like. There are some specific things that would be useful. We receive a lot of communications from Facebook and the different Facebook groups. You know, they do have a lot of value for communication amongst residents to one another. I really appreciate the people who did reach out to, whether it's our police department, to non-emergency dispatch, or they contact us directly when our doors are closed. Really, we appreciate all the help that the police department gives. The dispatchers will call us out when conditions dictate. In terms of some of the other concerns that we're faced with, my bigger challenge, I think, was some of the deer path area. Altoona is one that comes to mind. The cul-de-sacs, it was a struggle. We did make some changes within the deer path area 2 years ago. I think they are overall favorable. Some of the longer dog legs that you might pass 20 or so houses before you get to the cul-de-sac, we decided to move those internally to the village versus our contractor. Our contractor who oversees the cul-de-sacs, they will plow the cul-de-sacs, but we end up salting afterwards. So we think by having us tackle some of these dog legs in-house, it will bode better as we get into more into the winter. There's also some confusion in terms of who does sidewalks in different areas, and I think it's important to help clarify that. More specifically, in Greg's Landing, there's questions about who does the actual paths within Greg's Landing. The snow plan calls for Greg's Parkway, Huntington, and Lakeview, the major paths, 8 to 10 foot wide paths. Those are maintained by the village. There were some residents that were wondering if the Public Works Department plows people's sidewalks within the front of their houses. We really look for the homeowners to help support that as part of the snow plan. We struggle to take care of the larger streets and the sidewalk, larger path areas, and any help is appreciated with that. Let me see. One thing that we are looking to adapt, it will with the board's approval, is along Greg's Parkway. The path is on one side. Some people would like to use the path and they try to get potentially from the west side to the east side. And within the medians, that area within the medians have sidewalks, but they're not shoveled. So it's not in the snow plan. I would definitely not make it our top priority, but we do have a seasonal, and after the storms and after we finish our sidewalks, I'm proposing that we would send out one of my seasonals that would take care of those median crossings, because I think it does have some value. It's very difficult because we're going linear along a path, and these are really an operation. We may need a snow blower, etc. So it's a slow moving operation, but I don't know how else it gets done. So I'd like to amend our policy to have my staff take care of that as a lower priority after everything else is done. Those are really the larger things. I do have a focus on our cul-de-sacs. I think that's one area that in icy conditions, certainly we need to address, and looking to do that. And I did update in terms of the sidewalks, and I think how we might be able to improve those areas. So that's essentially my report. If there's any questions people have, I'm here to answer those.
Yeah, you know, from I guess a historical footnote, we started, plowing certain public sidewalks decades ago. Were you here then, Dave?
I have been here for decades, but I'm not sure if I was there then.
Well, the board said, yeah, let's, because of people wanting to walk and take the dog for a walk. I know we do Deer Path and I think Aspen and Sullivan. I think, you know what I mean?
Augusta, Evergreen.
Yeah, and probably certain paths, sidewalks in Grosse Pointe, so anyway, maybe we should put that on, our website, just to let everybody know we do, a lot of sidewalks in town.
Yeah, I appreciate the comment in terms of the bike paths. One thing that you will see during the CIP discussions is very soon we will have sidewalks that will extend all the way along Milwaukee Avenue. By August of this year now, in August, they're supposed to complete the crossing of the sidewalk for the EG&E. That will make one continuous sidewalk all the way from Libertyville to Lincolnshire once we work through the mall area. So once that happens, there will be a increased service need for people from Greg's Landing to go down Milwaukee Avenue and shop at Melody Farms and Hawthorn 2.0. So it's going to be a very difficult area to plow because it's so close to Milwaukee Avenue and all the snow that they're pushing on there. But I do think that after into next winter, we need to have discussions of expanding our sidewalk plowing route to include some areas on Milwaukee Avenue. So I'll get into that a little bit
Well,
more.
and we actually have like a small V plow, right, for the sidewalks and a brush.
And the skidster.
Absolutely, we have both of those.
Okay. All right, well, that's good. Connectivity is good.
It is.
I will throw in fact, with the snow that came, there were 3 phases to it. And one of the problems is that temperatures go up, but the ground was 27 degrees. So when the temperatures are up and it comes down as rain, it hits the ground and you get a flash freeze. And I plow myself, so I'm very much aware of this. And it was a tough weekend with this snow, rain, and sleet.
Yeah, no kidding. Enough said.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
There was some discussion on Facebook about the homeowners association's responsibility. Do they have any responsibility for any sidewalks? Are you aware of?
If any, it's very limited. Someone did share the email with me as far as some of the discussions and trying to outreach to the HOA. At best, the consideration for the HOA would be, for instance, within St. Andrews, there are islands, and within the islands, there's sidewalks. So the difficulty is homeowners within that pod do a good job of taking care of the sidewalk across their frontage, but this is within a paved area, and that's where the island is. So it has a sidewalk there. They maintain items within the islands itself, but they really, it would be a very difficult challenge for them also to take care of those areas. If there's a consideration for the village to go and do these, we will overtax our system with our current equipment and staffing. So my recommendation isn't for us to do it, but I don't think there's much that the HOA needs to do. I think there's clarity with some of the residents that outreach to us, and we had the discussion. The larger concern that was raised within Greg's Parkway is really people can't get across Greg's Parkway to get to the sidewalk as they're walking along there. And certainly that's what they wanted to do over New Year's and New Year's Day.
And do we don't have an ordinance covering blow torches, right? That was all over the internet, the guy, blow torching his driveway,
That was cousin Eddie.
It wouldn't be, it would not be encouraged.
And if I could just re-echo something that I think is very important. Our residents are very helpful in communication. We appreciate when they do reach out to us. If we're not within the Public Works building, because it's after hours, et cetera, please call our non-emergency number at the police department so they can dispatch us and we can come out and take care of the service. A number of people who did that, and it was really helpful, and we appreciate that.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the board on this one?
Just to remind people, that phone number is 362-4449. 362-4449, the non-emergency number.
Do you
Okay.
think it would be helpful to put a map on the website of what the Public Works Department covers and what the subcontracted companies cover and what's the homeowner's responsibility, or is that just not worthwhile?
I think all information is worthwhile, and we'll check whether or not it's on our website or not, but it should be.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then we move on to the omnibus vote agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt items A through S. I would like to make a comment on items K, N, O, P, Q, R, and S.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
So made.
Okay. Roll call.
President Byrne,
Comment first.
Oh, you want to comment on everything else?
Yeah, on those
Okay,
items,
Go ahead.
on items K, N, O, P, Q, R, and S. Those 7 items are abatement of basically mandatory property taxes that we are required to collect
Right.
to handle our obligations with regard to bonds. Because of the judiciousness of our budgeting process and our overall eye on spending, once again this year, we are abating, and that's what these 7 items are, is the abatement of the collection of a property tax by the village to cover the expenses noted in these 7 items. And basically, these 7 items represent bonds that we have outstanding for a variety of road construction and public improvement projects throughout the community that have been in place for as little as 3 or 4 years and as long as probably 15, 18 years, something like that. So again, just as a general comment, we are abating the statutorily obligated property taxes to cover those items because we are able to cover it from our other revenues, primarily sales tax, but also from the funds we receive from the state through the local government distributed fund, which includes a variety of things, including income tax. So just wanted to make that point. I'm more than happy now to participate in the roll call.
Well, in that same vein, I just want to ask the question, President Byrne, when did the abatements start for Vernon Hills? How long have we been doing this?
Since our first bond.
Probably decades. You know, we've been doing it for a long time. I mean, the TIF
Has the village
district,
ever levied a property tax? I mean,
They must have in the 50s, didn't they?
not in
I don't
30
know
years,
about
I know.
that. I don't know about that, but I'm just saying, you know, every bond that we've issued has never gone to referendum, and we've been able to, you know, financially pay our interest and principal, you know, from our general funds, which we're dominantly the sales tax, but there's other revenue streams, I mean, you get tax on electricity, you get tax. At one time we got tax on natural gas and such, but I mean, everything added up. But yeah, the first time we did it, doctor, I'd have to, ask somebody to go back in the archives. But
Yeah, it's at least over 30 years.
yeah, it's a long time. So
I thought you'd have that date like in tip of your tongue. Carry it in your wallet. We've been
yeah, well, I'll try to.
paying tax January 5th,
Yeah, I'll try.
1964.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't had a property tax in, from day one, right? I'm not sure. 1958. I mean, we may have. I mean, again, we could give that answer to the general public for their consumption. But it's been a good thing, a very good thing. So,
For sure.
okay, we ready to vote? Is there a motion and a second?
Yep.
Yes.
Hey, this is on all items though.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay,
A
roll
through
call.
President Byrne,
Aye.
trustee Schultz,
Aye.
Oppenheim,
Aye.
Takaoka,
Aye.
Aye.
Markwart,
Aye.
Forster,
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Unfinished business, flavored tobacco vaping product discussion.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the last board meeting, the village board, Daniel Ryan from the Lake County Department of Public Health made a presentation to the board addressing the health and safety issues surrounding the use of flavored tobacco products, including flavored vaping liquids. At the conclusion of her presentation, 2 members of the Stevenson High School Catalyst Club also addressed the board and joined the Lake County Department of Public Health, encouraging the board to pass an ordinance banning the sale of flavored tobacco products, including flavored vaping liquids. After discussion by members of the board, staff was requested to obtain additional information on how many businesses are licensed to sell tobacco products in Vernon Hills and try to estimate the financial impact of businesses if such an ordinance were passed. Over the past few weeks, staff conducted an analysis of the requested information, and I included that in the board packet. But essentially, there are currently 15 businesses in Vernon Hills licensed to sell tobacco products, including vaping products. Of those 15 businesses licensed to sell the tobacco and vaping products, 8 or 53% sell flavored products. Of those 8 businesses that sell tobacco and vaping products, 7 do so as ancillary product to their main business. In other words, they're not tobacco stores sold at gas stations, convenience stores, drug stores, etc. Of the remaining 7 businesses, 6 do not sell vaping products at all. And there is only 1 business that sells these products as part of their customer-directed sales. And then there was 1 business that chose not to respond. Illinois currently does not have a comprehensive flavored tobacco ban. In fact, there are no other communities in our area that have a similar ordinance in place. However, the city of Chicago has recently enacted an ordinance banning the sale of flavored tobacco products and vaping liquids. If the board would like to move forward and consider, staff would recommend delaying the implementation of any proposed ordinance for at least a period of 1 year, and that would allow those businesses currently licensed to sell these products an opportunity to deplete their current inventories, minimizing any negative financial impact to the business. If the board does decide to move forward with such a ban on flavored tobacco and vaping liquids, staff will work with council to prepare the necessary paperwork to bring back before the board at a future meeting. Another recommendation by staff is it seemed to be, based on the discussion and the comments made at the last board meeting, it's not the intention of the board to put any of these businesses out of business or drive anyone from Vernon Hills. There is 1 business that was mentioned earlier in the email and the comments to the village board earlier tonight that is their business. They sell tobacco and tobacco products pretty much exclusively. Our recommendation would be, if the board decides to move forward with this, that they would grandfather that business in under our current ordinances, with the understanding that no future licenses of that nature would be issued to any businesses like that in the future. And with that, I'll just open the discussion up
Where
to the
is
board.
that business located? It's on Milwaukee Avenue?
Yeah, it's in River Tree Shopping Center. It's Artisans
Where-
Vaping.
Where Giordano's used to be, correct? Or right next to it?
Right near there, yeah, down from the Bunt Cake Place, next to the
Correct.
jewelry, watch repair,
Right.
Oh, okay.
so right across from Shake Shack.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
Well, I think, especially based on the email that we got tonight, one of the things I'd like to do is maybe take a little more time to look at this, because all we've had is one presentation. We have not really given, I think, adequate time for people with opposing views, both sides of the issue. And I think it's something we may just have to wait until we can get back to where we actually have a more public meeting where people can actually come in and voice their opinions, because I'd hate to move forward on something like this based just on one group coming in and making a presentation. It's one of the kind of things that I think we need to give both sides of the issue an opportunity to speak and present their arguments. And for one, we've got the good information. I appreciate the information staff gave us. But I think it's something we need to put off a while until we can get a little more of an opportunity for public comment.
Okay, then the only question I would have is how would you direct us to proceed?
Well,
we do a giant Zoom meeting?
I think
I
Tom
was
was
suggesting waiting
waiting. Yeah.
until we can actually have a meeting in person.
Right.
That
Yeah,
might-
yeah. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, those are better than this. I know that.
Right.
So-
Absolutely.
So could we then at least have a moratorium for new licenses? So that, I mean, I don't know if anyone would really rush into getting a license knowing that we're about to, but I don't want people to try to get grandfathered in if that ends up being the
Yeah,
case.
absolutely. A moratorium on anything new. I mean,
Yep.
basically what I'd like to do is not change the status quo until we've had more time for public comment. But yeah, keep it as is, no expansion.
Can handle that.
And then, yeah,
Well,
I don't think really anyone,
So does that mean that we shouldn't be issuing liquor licenses because more people die and start drinking at a young age? This is a bridge too far for me. I was uncomfortable with this. I was uncomfortable with the fact that we'd be putting one, maybe more than one business out of business by taking this action. I understand, the caveats that Mark has suggested here about moratoria or grandfathering, et cetera, but it's a legal product. It's not illegal in the state of Illinois, just like alcohol is not illegal in the state of Illinois. Now, I was the smoking Nazi some 14 years ago. I was the guy that got beat up real bad when we started to move forward in advance of the states moving forward. But that was a situation where it was a clean air of people that were not smoking, that had no desire to smoke, but they were being subject to secondhand smoke. And that's why we went full tilt to try and facilitate an ordinance that was then superseded by state law, but that demanded that no interior space allow smoking. And I stand by that. But, because that is one person's action, which is harming another person. This particular case, it's an individual purchasing a product that is a legal product for their own use. We already have an ordinance in place and/or state law in place that says that you cannot utilize this product in an enclosed space, in a public space. And we've already enacted ordinances where you must be 21 years of age or older to, utilize these products. I mean, we've done everything that we can to facilitate the full extent and prohibitions that are mandated by the state law and by common sense. I think, again, to me, this was a bridge too far.
Yeah, I mean, if everybody concurs about just having a moratorium on new licenses being issued to sell these products until we can go live, it's fine with me. It's
And both parties will have a chance to influence someone who will be sitting in this chair, because by the time we go live, it'll be after I'm no longer here.
Yeah, well, yes, I could relate to that. Okay. Well, do we need to go any further for staff on this? I mean, is that a clear direction?
Yes, sir, that's clear enough. We'll put it on hold until such time we can have a public hearing.
Okay.
Do we need to have a vote on the moratorium then?
Was good.
If I may, if the board's decision is to enact a moratorium, that would be required by ordinance. That's how we've done it in the past in other communities. So,
Which would have to come to the next meeting, not this one.
correct.
Okay, well, council, you can draft an ordinance.
Yeah.
We can-
And then can we put a
I just
time
want to say
limit?
something.
Yeah, go ahead, Kurt.
Yeah, I just want to say something in response to Jim. I think Jim, remember this, people approach us and say, hey, consider this. This isn't necessarily a village. I agree with Trustee Cook. Definitely should get some feedback on the other side of the issue. But this is not like something extraordinary as far as like we're doing something that, some states have even gone as far as to ban it, whether it's Rhode Island, California, places like that, in Illinois, who knows, right? In 2019, they actually had it down in Springfield talking about banning flavored tobacco. So, this isn't anything I think we're, I get your bridge too far, but it's not like we're doing anything or creating any precedents. But again, this comes from the community. I'm with what the community wants to do at this point, if it's no different than with the marijuana, dispensary issue, we had a huge outpouring of support saying, hey, we really don't want an entity like that, in our town. So really let the community dictate it, get responses on both sides, and hey, let's see where it goes from there. That's really how I see it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The tap the brakes just till we can get more input.
Exactly.
As far as a moratorium, is concerned, we would probably need a little bit more direction too, and can provide options. As far as ordinance language is concerned, the city of Chicago, their current ban does not apply to flavored tobacco entirely. It only addresses flavored vaping and e-cigarette products. We've advised and passed an ordinance for another municipality, a non-home rule municipality, that banned flavored nicotine products, so all in total. And a moratorium that I've worked on before was a moratorium for no further business licenses for solely vape or vaping product stores. So there are a lot of different options. So if I could recommend, or if we could further discuss maybe bringing forward what the options are, maybe at another committee of the whole meeting, and then if there's direction to prepare a specific ordinance, we can do that either after some sort of public meeting or other further board discussion, because simply saying moratorium, there's just a lot of things that can be put on hold.
Yeah, I'm good with you bringing it back to us with some options.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, committee of the whole.
Everybody's okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
One thing that I want to add is, Mayor, can I say something?
Yeah, you're just
Can
breaking
you
up.
hear me?
I
You've
can
got
hear you.
bad Wi-Fi going.
Yeah, it seems like I do. I don't know if you want to address this, Craig, if my Wi-Fi is bad, but regarding the advertising that was put out.
Yeah, I mean, a big driver of, people reaching out to me specifically was when Chicago, stated that they're banning the sale of flavored tobacco products. Then on Facebook, it was all over Facebook, the store here in town that said, hey, you can come here and buy your vaping products because Chicago just passed an ordinance. And that's sort of just like, my phone kind of blew up and said, hey, are we going to look at something like that? I'm like, hey, yeah, sure. I'll, look into it. And then, Danielle Ryan approached me as well and said, absolutely. And, a lot of it had to do with that, to be honest with you. Brought it to the attention of this community as far as, the possibility of this. So, by no means are we looking to try and put anyone out of business. That's definitely not our, motivation, so to speak. Again, community driven.
Okay,
I agree.
can we move on?
So you'll bring it back at the next meeting or when?
We'll bring back, Carmen will bring back options
Right.
for ordinances at the next committee of the whole meeting, which then could be adopted at the meeting after that.
We can do that.
You can do that, Carmen, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Where are you at? Oh, there you are. People are moving around. Okay, next item is the financial assistance to businesses discussion.
Again, Mr. President, at the last village board meeting, there was a discussion that just spontaneously occurred. And at the conclusion of that, board directed staff to research some ways the village could assist our local businesses to try to help them through the economic crisis created by the COVID-19 pandemic and the new rollback. Staff promised to conduct a bit of research and place this on the agenda for tonight. In preparation for the board meeting, staff prepared a document for your review. That document was emailed to all the board members yesterday. And while it's not a comprehensive review of all the ideas that are being considered throughout the county, it should provide enough information to engage in a meaningful conversation. I didn't necessarily want to read the entire document out here for the board tonight, but I figured that would be enough to get the conversation started, at least see where it rolls from there.
Right. Well, needless to say, it was pretty comprehensive, I guess, communication, contact, questioning of the, restaurants and other eateries in town. And so I appreciate the effort that, Mark, you and staff put in. And it's, so where do we start? It's
Well, I'd like to start with, we can go through the options, but first I'd like to just go through the ground rules of who would qualify. I think that would be kind of germane if we get agreement on that. And then what we provide to them would be secondary. So what staff has put together indicated that they must be operating within the borders of Vernon Hills and reporting sales tax to the Illinois Department of Revenue. They must generate a minimum of 50% of their primary sales from restaurant or bar service, be in good standing with all debts and payments owed to the village, be in compliance with the state of Illinois COVID-19 mitigation guidelines. That, we need to discuss that. Be open at the time of application. In other words, not have filed for bankruptcy or whatever. The restaurant cannot be part of a franchise system with 4 or more locations. The restaurant cannot be corporately owned with 4 or more locations. And corporately owned or franchised restaurants with 4 or less locations may be eligible if they provide evidence that they have not received any financial support from the corporate or franchise entity. That's a little nebulous, and that'll need some additional definition. With regard to be in compliance with the state of Illinois COVID-19 mitigation guidelines, we do not have a health department. We depend on the kindness of the Lake County Health Department for any inspections and/or. So I don't know how we generate compliance or understanding of compliance with that.
Well, Jim, we do, you know, some inspections because all the building
Right.
inspectors have been trained, but that's to turn it over, you
Right.
know, to the county health department. But I mean, because we went through that drill when
Right.
Chili's, you know, kind of got about 165 people ill from whatever it was, Ebola or, you know, anything else.
Hysteria, I think.
And now
Salmonella.
what's that? Salmonella, yeah. And now
That's
it's
what
a jewelry store, but the new Chili's has a redundancy built in with, I think, 4 backup, you know, hot water tanks. Because this occurred when the hot water kind of, you know, it went away at the Chili's, and they kept serving people, and they couldn't sanitize their dishes and cutlery glasses. Anyway, okay.
But yeah, so anyway, my bottom line is we need some additional definition regarding that. And then with regard to corporate or franchisees with less than 4 locations, you know, evidence that they haven't received support.
Now, Trustee Schultz?
Yeah.
I don't want to mix too many things together here, but those guidelines is basically a conglomeration of what a number of other communities have put together. If you were offering a cash grant program, there are a lot of other things on the list that we could do that don't involve awarding cash or giving cash away. And one of the things that we made mention of in here was the number one thing that every restaurant that we spoke with, John, I, Kristen, and whoever spoke with, said the best thing you could do for us to offer immediate assistance is to abate your business license and liquor license fees.
But that they don't come due till May.
The bills go out this month. Actually, the bills were due out yesterday.
Okay.
So I mean, in the back of their minds, they're thinking we've got this bill hanging over our heads, and if we're going to do business in the village, we got to pay this.
And your number was that would only cost us about 230,000 in revenue?
That is if you included 100% of all the businesses licensed to sell food and beverage. However, that needs a little bit of refining too, because there are a number of businesses like big box stores that sell food and alcohol that have actually done far better, or even carry-out businesses that have done far better during this pandemic because they cater to the carry-out business.
So you're saying it would actually be a little less if we tightened the parameters?
Yeah, in talking with Kyle from finance, I guess it would probably be somewhere around 160 or 170,000 of lost revenue.
Well, I think that should be our first step.
Right. So that's option 1 of the list, was waiver of business and liquor license fees. And yeah, I agree. Anybody who qualifies that they have indoor seating, not a private club, evidence they've suffered a decrease of 15%, and does not apply to grocery stores, office cafes, pharmacies, liquor stores, convenience stores, gas stations, banquets, or catering of private clubs, as they must be open to the general public. So, yeah, so that's a 160,000 plus or minus.
Plus or minus.
And then property tax abatements, we have not within our control.
No,
We already did.
yeah.
Right,
We did that.
And I noted that in the report. That's not within our control.
right.
And one of the other recommendations from another business was to take 100%, or I'm sorry, 90% of all the sales tax collected and reinvest it back in the businesses. Again, that's out of our control.
Right.
Right.
So there is the food and beverage tax that we're collecting 1.5, 2 million.
It's about one.
One.
Pre-COVID, it's about $1 million. And
So
that one,
if we took 25% of that, we're talking about another $250,000, and we're probably only talking maybe 15, 20 businesses in town, but those are up
we
as
would
good.
have to work the numbers with that. But like I said, several of the restaurants said, hey, it would be great if the village would just abate that full 1%. What some of the other communities have done is they've said,
Well, not abated, but
well, they're rebating.
abated. Yeah,
Not
they,
a debate. Yeah. Give it back to them.
Yeah, what
Rebate.
rebate. And what some of the communities have bantered around, and I don't know anyone that's done it yet, but they've offered to share their 1% food and beverage tax for a finite period of time. For example, maybe 6 months or 3 months, because in 3 months or 6 months, the world could be an entirely different place. Or we revisit it again in 6 months and extend it. But the idea would be is we would give back, or they would still collect the 1%, submit the documentation that they're submitting to the state like they do now, and they're allowed to keep 50% of our 1%. So over a
so
period
you're
of,
suggesting 50%.
yeah, I'm just throwing it out there as that's what's been done in that's what's being discussed in other communities.
And that would amount to,
Hard to
That's
say,
hard.
but I'm guessing if you did it for, again, we'd have to figure out, because again, you have the businesses like the big box stores that sell alcohol as ancillary to their business, which would not be exempted. We've got 2 new liquor stores that are going to be opening up in town. They would not be included in that as well.
well, one might. I mean, if you're considering it to be a single or a franchise that has less than 4, because they will only have 2 locations.
Well, but they weren't open at the start of the pandemic. In other words,
Okay.
they haven't had a loss. They haven't even
Yeah,
opened
they
their
have to
doors
show
yet.
a loss.
Yeah, they haven't even opened their doors yet.
Okay.
So we can do a
Can I-
further analysis, but before we spent hours and hours poring over these numbers and trying to make assumptions, we wanted to see where this discussion went and what the direction of the board was.
I'd like to say something. I think what you really need to look at here is you need to do something, and I like what Libertyville did to facilitate the business. Abating 1% of having your business down 50% to me is like kind of, you can't really project off that. Can't say we collected $1 million, but if someone's business is down significantly, I don't think it really impacts as much as trying to do something that facilitates people going out and, creating business for these entities. So what Libertyville did with these Libertyville certificates, I think is a great idea. You have a $100 gift certificate. Village gives an extra 25, so that $100 gift certificate's really worth $125 to the restaurant. Again, maybe do something like that. Do a Vernon Hills Takeout Tuesday promotion. Sell a certificate for $100, but it's $125. In revenue for the restaurant. I think we got to think along those lines, something to promote and facilitate business. Because if you read some of these comments, it's like, geez, if we could just get to, having 50%, capacity to drive up our business, we need to do something to help drum up their business. And I think this certificate program Libertyville's doing is a great idea.
John Petrillo, are you on? I know he was. Because we have, up until this point, we have focused nearly 100% of our time in doing exactly what you're suggesting, is drumming up business for the restaurants. We have done advertisements. John, I'm going to let you speak to this because this is really up your alley.
So Mark, do you want me to start with what the businesses said about the social media and what they would like to see from us?
And what we have done to try to drum up business or encourage business in our communities. our restaurants.
Okay, so from the last board meeting, the direction was initially to canvass several family-owned, smaller restaurants to see how we could help. And going back 1 month after that, as the board may know, we started the Instagram page called Experience Vernon Hills. And that was based on a Vernon Hills family-owned business that said they didn't have the exposure on Route 60, and there was kind of like a lack of awareness that they were even there and in business. There's been some other villages that have been very active in either spending for a third-party marketing company to specifically focus on small business. And one of the discussions Mark and I had is we're not sure the return on the investment is there, spending maybe $100,000 to encourage people to shop local when we believe a lot of the Vernon Hills residents know where every business is, or most of them. What our goal was to create a page that kind of reaches outside of Vernon Hills, going along the lines of what Trustee Takioka said, letting people know we have other restaurants here that are open and in need of support. So we started in tandem with Visit Lake County and asked them to have a focus. I don't want to say pivot, but let's be honest, tourism and promoting people from other states to come to Northern Illinois during this period, it's probably not going to translate well and equate to people being here. So we created Experience Vernon Hills, which was supposed to be a focus on our restaurants. And while the reach of it right now isn't what it is because the followers are still under 1,000, our village Facebook page with a post of a family-owned restaurant just right here in this village can get about 4,000 views. But if it's a boosted post, meaning we sponsor it and push it out, we've seen some that can go into the tens of thousands. We had one, for example, the Experience Vernon Hills post of the holiday lights outside the village hall. It continues to go up in views and people seeing it. So one of the, I don't want to say experiments that we're doing right now is an e-guide where we push it out there. And while it looks like it's only being seen a few times, when Kristen pulls up the analytics, we see it being seen tens of thousands of times, and it's giving very small businesses, when we do feature them, visibility. And when Mark and I went around, the businesses know we're doing it. They want to see us do it. And we've even been approached by larger corporates saying, feature us, but we believe the board's vision or direction on this was not to be out there creating a advertising platform for corporate businesses that have their own marketing. We believe the board's direction was to feature the smaller mom and pops that are maybe sitting tucked away in Hawthorn Hills or River Tree or behind the mall that were in need of visibility and in need of a little help during this time. So it's working. I can share the analytics next month. At some point, we wanted to have a larger presentation for the board just to detail how it works and how minimal the costs are, but how big the exposure is and how valuable that is to the small restaurants.
And the other thing that they've done is John and Kristen both have gone out to countless restaurants. And I don't want to say interviewed, but they've done like 30 to 60 second videos that feature the business, that feature the food, that talks to the managers and the owners, saying, you know, here's what we have, come shop here. We have dining, indoor dining, etc., outdoor dining. And those have all been posted on our social media pages with thousands of hits. That's where we focused to date because it's cost us the least, but it's taken the most amount of time.
And there is a buzz, as Mark shared. I'm gonna give one shout out. Michael Hullab has a restaurant with zero visibility, but he understands it's not just the facing of 60 during this day and age. Sitting at home, if we can hit this 10,000 times, people will know where a claim company is or a smaller restaurant if they get featured on this and it gets pushed out. And he has been very grateful for the 2 times that we featured his restaurant. So we believe there's a tremendous power in this Experience Vernon Hills Instagram platform. So much so that we're very appreciative that Visit Lake County saw what we were doing, noted what we were doing, invited the village to take a position on their board, and looking for additional cooperation and collaboration and synergy for restaurants. And you'll see that during Restaurant Week. But we're going to try and focus, you'll see this week, and I believe next week, we're going to focus on entire areas, not specifically one restaurant, but Melody Farm, Hawthorn. We really want to get the message out that Hawthorn's going to still be open, and then hit some of the smaller restaurants, but they're appreciative and they know the power of what we can do. But it's also been a balancing act during this time with some of the prohibitions. We don't necessarily just want to say go in and eat, but we are trying to follow the board's advice of saying there were other options such as the curbside or the pickup or one of the third-party delivery services. But we are trying to feature these restaurants. They're aware of the power of it and they're appreciative. And they asked us to pass that on to the board. I think you'll see that in the notes. Very appreciative for the board allowing us to do this.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Absolutely. I saw some of these other towns are doing that type of stuff. But what I'm saying is to me, we could focus on, 15 family-owned businesses like Acclaim Companies, the Scotties, the Jamesons, Bobo's. Let's do something. Let's do a promotion, like to promote takeout on Tuesday. I'm telling you, Takeout Tuesday. Let's do something with the village with specific restaurants. Look, Portillo's doesn't need advertising, right? Chick-fil-A doesn't need it. Those lines are busier than ever. Was in Schaumburg 2 weeks ago. The line at Raising Cane's is around 24/7 as long as they're open. Always got 20 cars waiting to go through that drive-through. Raising Cane's. Remember that?
I don't know, that's
Roger?
like twice or three times you've got that in now.
Exactly. So I'm just saying, entities like that, I know their businesses are up. My son delivers pizza for Lou Malnati. They're very busy. Okay. But I'm talking about the Bobos here. We got to do something specific. Let's get a basket and let's do a promotion and let's do it weekly for the next 2 months. Cause I don't think we're getting out of this thing anytime soon, according, to the governor. Okay. And to me, it's just, let's do something to spark people just ordering from them. And if we have 15 restaurants listed on the website, it's like, hey, every Tuesday, you spend this much, and we create some sort of program again, like Libertyville had. You have a $100 gift certificate, and then we contribute $25 more. Something to that extent is what I'm talking about. And it's not, and I don't think it's necessarily going to cost tens of thousands of dollars. Not, this is a promotion, so to speak, over the next, call it 2 months. I say run it through the end of March.
All right. Let us check with Libertyville and see how they do that. And then Craig, if you're willing to meet with us and maybe one other trustee to work through some of these things.
Yeah.
Tom or somebody, whatever.
Yeah, I'll be happy to. I'll be happy to.
Yeah, work through some of these things because, we're not geniuses. We're not rocket scientists here. We're trying to do the best we can. And like everyone else, we want to do the best thing we can, the best job we can for our businesses, because we all have a stake in this. Everyone sitting in this meeting has a stake in this. But until the governor opens up the doors again, it's going to be very tough. So we can work on this together.
Yeah, can we identify those businesses that qualify for the business and liquor license abatement?
That we can do. Well, that's an automatic. I've already got a note to do that. I've already made a note to see what it would cost if we did the food and beverage tax sharing agreement for 6 months, and then we can figure out what it would cost to do it for 3 months and 9 months. That's easy.
Right.
As an alternative.
But you are definitely moving ahead. You're definitely moving ahead with the waiver of the fees and that because that's happening right now, correct?
Right. We will draft some type of a letter and explain. We'll have to go through the criteria and make sure that we know who we feel meets the needs.
Okay.
Like you said, Portillo's, there's no need because you're going to have to demonstrate a loss. Unless you just want to do a blanket waiver of all the license fees.
No.
Okay, I didn't think so.
We have a fiduciary obligation to the resident.
Right. All right, so let's.
So are we sticking with some of those rules that were proposed in terms of not being franchises or corporate owned, or are we not?
Right. Yeah, we'll come up with a list that I think would probably best exemplify what we're trying to achieve.
Like, what about on the border, for example?
Well, they're actually, I think they're closed entirely right now.
As of when?
As of when the governor rolled back the requirements to tier 3, within a week or so, John and I actually were there for lunch, and they said this was their last day.
Well, I was just there a week ago. They're still doing some carry out, but
Yeah, we
we'll-
did carry out.
Okay, we'll check with them because they said they were closing entirely for no carry out, no anything. So they may have changed their,
well, they were going to, they had the patio, but then their corporate, I spoke with the manager, their corporate came by and said that the issue was they're not supposed to be selling alcohol on the patio or something. It wasn't that exactly, but whatever. They couldn't seat us on the patio. We could only do carry out. But
Yeah, but
but
they
I was-
wouldn't qualify because they're a big corporate entity.
well, that's the question. Do we want to support a local
Yeah,
expense of a big corporate entity?
even if they're, yeah, if they can show some kind of loss of that, I mean, we even need to keep some of the franchise type places in business too.
I mean, that might encourage the corporations, the corporate entities to
Yeah.
say, hey, Vernon Hills is really trying their best to keep us around, and they're abating our
Especially when it comes to waiving the licensing fees.
right. So they might say, well, we'll stick it out another year, re-up our lease or something with the hope that just because they see that we're trying.
I really don't think that $3,000 to $5,000 is a make or break with a corporate entity that's dealing in multi-millions of dollars with, I don't know, let's at least double-digit locations and probably a lot more than that. That's a drop in the bucket. That's not, that's a rounding error as far as they're.
Right. So you can look at it both ways. I mean, you can look at it as, yes, it's a drop in the bucket, rounding error, just like that half of our 1% food and beverage taxes. That's a drop in the bucket compared to, as Craig pointed out, the tens of thousands that they're losing in income.
Right, but it's.
So
The corporate entities have the ability, I mean, right now, there's corporate money out there at, 0.25, 0.35%. But we're talking about guys that are digging. The guy that I want to protect is the guy that's digging in his own pocket. He's got 50 grand in the bank and he's losing 5 grand a month. He's got 10 months until he pulls the plug. Corporate entity, they're going to ride this out because they're getting basically free money from whoever. Goldman just announced another 250 million, and I don't think we need to hold a tag day for millionaires.
well, the other thing that we need to check into, and I know Kyle is going to try and do his best to get some numbers before the board meeting or some information, is with this last round of stimulus package that just came in over the weekend. I don't know what money is available for what businesses, how many, or anything like that. But also just anecdotally, I don't want to mention the business's name, but there was one restaurant that we went to where the owner, he's down to him and a cook, and he hasn't paid himself anything since October.
Right.
Those are the people that we need to help. We need to help everybody, but those are the people that we desperately need our assistance.
Yes.
Well, we can't help everybody because we can't print money.
Mhm.
That's true.
You're exactly
Only
right.
Federal government can do that.
Yep.
And let's kick something up here. I mean, I don't have a problem helping the 15 restaurants with, a coupon.
We'll jump on this right away. And
Yeah.
we'll try to put together some general guidelines before the end of the week. And we'll get that out to the board for your review and for your comments.
Yeah.
can I ask, does Jameson's qualify based on the number of locations they have?
I would basically say yes, because even though it's a franchise, they're individually owned and that's his business. He's not affiliated with the other Jamesons.
Okay.
We learned that too. We learned a lot on our walk and talks.
Well, that's a good thing. That's great.
It really was. And we met a lot of nice people.
Yeah.
And a lot of angry people, not at us. And I should mention this too, and I mentioned it in the memo to you. Without exception, every single business we talked to said how appreciative they were of the village and what the village board and everyone has done to try to help them along up to this point in the process. They are extremely appreciative, and not one person was critical of the village or anything we've done. And that's nice in this environment. That's very unusual.
And if I can ask John Petrollo to send out his communication team over to Real Urban Barbecue to check out their ice fishing shanties that they have. I've got a clam. They have Eskimos, but that's all right. Eskimo is a good shanty also.
But the clams you can drag around in a snowstorm.
Well, you can, these actually, they pop up.
Sorry.
They're like the blow up tents or whatever. You pull
Yeah.
those thing and it
Yeah, the dome.
comes up, and that's one I've got too. So, but anyway, yeah, people are trying to be creative,
Absolutely.
and as Craig said, the more we can help with creative alternatives, the better off I think we'll all be.
And are we addressing the tent igloo hut thing at all?
I'll leave that up to you, but our recommendation is if you were going to do something like that, I would not recommend us buying the tents. Dave Brown did the research on that, and they're basically like a 40 by 60 foot tent, and they cost about $15,000 if you can get them.
Yeah.
And right now, everybody's trying to get those. And if we retained ownership, we would probably be the ones setting them up. We would also be the ones assuming liability in the case of an accident. They still need to pay for heat for those things to make it work. And, once this event is over with 6-9 months, we would have no more use for them here in the village. And then at $15,000 a piece, how do you determine which restaurant qualifies for them? Because everyone would want something like that if they could get it.
Right.
Right.
Well, not everybody would need, what'd you say, 40 by 60?
40 by 60, yeah.
Yeah, well,
But that's
not
kind of
enough-
like
there's not enough room to put up those size tents unless you use summer celebration site or an open field.
or your parking lot.
I
They don't
guess.
seem to be overly filled these days.
Well, okay. But I mean,
So,
in a parking lot, theoretically, what, you could have 5, 6, 7, 8 restaurants use it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so
you
let
need
me,
a bigger
let me,
tent.
let me throw my idea out now then. Can I throw my idea out here?
Yeah.
Here's my idea for the future. It's called Food Truck Alley. I got it from an airport I was in. They called it Food Truck Alley, where they had this alley set up like an alley. They had multiple food truck like vendors. Why don't, now that everything's going to outdoor, and granted we can only do this when the weather's nice, but why don't we try and find a location where we could we set up pads, Dave Brown, with electric, and food trucks could pull up. We could lease space and have, I don't know, like 6, 5, 6, 7, and call it Vernon Hills Food Truck Alley. What do you think?
Just
Usually
sort of
the
like
food-
what we do at summer celebration.
No, but I'm talking about permanent. I want this thing all once
Permanent.
the weather breaks through the summer. And then you have people, you could do it month-to-month leases of the pad, and I bet you I'm willing to bet that could work.
I
Well,
think go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think the blowback from the brick and mortar stores would
Right.
be intense.
Yep.
Every year, the park district does like food truck days over in the park across the
Right.
street. And the restaurants in the shopping center across the way call us and complain every week they do that. Because
Oh, really?
it takes business away from them. They've got a brick and mortar store. These guys come in and, I doubt we're even getting any tax money from those places, those trucks that come in. Now, under your scenario, we certainly would. But the
Right.
brick and mortar restaurants really get their hair up on the back of their neck, for lack of a better term.
Well, I would think at this point in time, for sure, here we are talking, helping them, and then bringing in the food trucks. But the food trucks would be fun at some point in time.
Yes, absolutely. Like on a once a month or once every 2 weeks or something like that. Highland Park does
I
that.
want to talk to Vernon Township because they tried that 2 years ago. And in fact, talked to Sergeant Katzenstein His buddy was the one that was kind of organizing it. And they ordered 3 food trucks and 1 showed up. And they wound up with 3 food trucks worth of customers and only 1 food truck to serve.
Right.
So, you know,
Right.
it's difficult. It's difficult.
Yeah,
Let's
they
work
had-
on,
they
let's
had
work
that
on
at the
this first.
fairgrounds.
Okay,
Okay, I was just lobbing my idea out there anyway.
it's not a bad idea. It's good.
I love
I
the
think it's
food
a good
trucks
idea for a
myself.
privately owned business, but anyway, that's on a whole nother.
You see enough of them on drivers, dine-ins, and dives.
Yeah.
They're on they feature them a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
Representative Didech, yes.
So are we done with this? What are the actionable items here? What's the plan?
The actionable items is number 1, which is the license, liquor license and business license fees. We'll put together a list of those businesses that we feel qualify based on the guidelines that we've discussed here. We'll send that out to the board, hopefully by the end of this week. Item number 2 is we're going to work on figuring out if we did the 1% food and beverage sharing agreement with those probably the same type of restaurants. What would that cost us? And how much would that generate for 3, 6, 9 months or a year, you know, assuming this goes on forever. The third thing we're going to work on is we're going to talk to Libertyville and see about their coupon day. I'm just a little bit familiar with the program, but we could actually reach out to them and find out what it is they're actually offering and how it works and how effective it's been to date. Once we have those 3 things, we'll get that back to you ASAP. If we decide to move on the coupon thing, Craig and Tom said that they would get together and work on that with us so we can put the plan together. The other ones, upon board's approval, we can send out letters to the businesses and let them know that they're listed, what's going on with the liquor and license agreements. And when we have consensus on whether or not you want to do the sharing of the 1% food and beverage tax, we'll get back to you with that. And once we get that information, we can reach out to our businesses as well.
And if I could have one thing, just to redouble your efforts with regard to those Facebook postings.
That goes without saying. I mean, we've only got, you know, so many staff in the village hall. I think there's 4 of us. And Kristen and John have just done a yeoman's job with going out. They're going out on a daily basis, meeting with these people and doing the interviews with them.
Should we commit to a budget for boosting those Facebook posts?
John, I know there's a cost for doing that. It's not significant.
So it's actually it's very small. Kristen, are you able to get on and talk about what a boost would cost? You want to sit here? So I'm gonna have, so Kristen administers the page, the Facebook page. And you know, I was mentioning how we're using Facebook and Instagram. So they're both simultaneously able to integrate into each other. As I shared in my opening statement, Instagram was set up to be the Experience Vernon Hills page dedicated exclusively to our restaurants and our shopping and our entertainment venues. As we try to grow the audience, we are using our Facebook page, which has a more significant following, but we use, we have the ability to do a boost, a paid boost. And for a small amount, I believe it's like $25 or $50, Kristen can set the range. So I see Kristen's on. Kristen, you want to jump in and talk about how that works, how many days, how many views, and how far the reach gets and what you've seen with the analytics?
To submit an ad on either Facebook or Instagram, you can actually choose the dollar amount. So it can be as low as like $2 and it could be $1,000. And obviously the higher the dollar amount, the more people that you're going to reach. We've tested this out a couple of times on some posts that we've done and have seen really awesome results. So I think the first thing that we did was when we put out the map and checklist for the holiday lights. I mean, we got maybe 600 likes, which we don't normally get a whole lot of likes on our posts. It does hit a lot of people, but this had hundreds of likes and hundreds of shares. And so it really got out there. So we've started to, I think we did $50 for that post as well. We've really tried to kind of pick items that we think would help boost the retail and the restaurants in Vernon Hills, especially with our dining guides. So we're kind of playing around and seeing, how it works and how many people that we're reaching. But we're really just starting out and don't know the full impact of it yet. But so far, we're seeing really good results, and we can certainly share the insights that we receive on that as well through the reporting.
So Dr. O, you and Trustee Schultz, you mentioned, maybe boosting it. So I saw in one of my budgets, I have still, I believe, remaining like a $500 advertising campaign that was probably supposed to be intended for maybe Visit Lake County or the Chamber. With your permission, let us experiment with that over the next month, featuring some of these restaurants that have been mentioned tonight, with us standing out front and bringing out the cooks, maybe bringing out the plates, reminding everybody that they're open, and we can give you a report back and, maybe 2 board meetings from now, what that's looked like and what the reach has been.
Perfect.
Is that good? And I also, in addition to, the work that the communications team has done, well, Carmen is here. I want to, give him a shout out. He helped draft the policy to make sure it was, legally valid. We were using a village Facebook page initially to help boost the Instagram page, but it appears to be well received. It's legitimate. It's valid. Carmen, you said it's legal. We're not specifically advertising any one business. We're doing this for the greater economic good of not only the village, but a base that supports village operations with the restaurant, alcohol and beverage taxes and permits. So, Carmen, thanks for your help. And I appreciate the board giving us the opportunity to help. As Marcus said, the restaurants love it. They love it when we come up and ask if they want to be featured.
Okay. Well, let's damn the torpedoes.
We're on it.
Great work.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Dr. O, as far as actionable items?
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate
Okay.
that. Sometimes you get kind of lost in the forest.
I'm keeping notes.
Yeah,
I'm keeping notes as long as I'm drinking out of my Grinch coffee.
thanks to you and the staff for, I know that took a long time to get all of that put together. Appreciate that, as well as the flavored vaping. That took a long time too, I'm sure. So thanks.
Yeah, working on the restaurant thing, that's more of I would call it a labor of love. It really is. It's a very rewarding thing. And like I said, we've met a lot of really great people, and there's a lot of really nice businesses in town, which we'd like to do, as you would like to do everything we can to make sure they succeed.
For sure.
Goes without saying. Okay, staff, thank you. Board, you're satisfied at this moment in time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, next is Representative Didech asked neighbors for legislative ideas. And I know one of them was I think Trustee Schultz is successful in getting him at some point in time to sponsor
Yes.
the legislation germane to what's appropriate to keep flying flags at half-mast.
Yeah. I talked to Dan yesterday. He's going to go forward by the end of January with a piece of legislation that basically it takes the U.S. flag code. The maximum period that a flag should be at half staff is when a president dies, and that's 30 days. So basically what he's going to say is that no flag in the state of Illinois should be flown at half staff for a period longer than the maximum that is enumerated in federal statute, again, which would be 30 days, which is fine. And bless his little heart for going forward with that. With that being said, I said if there's any way that you can talk to the governor or his staff or slip him a note under the door or whatever that says, hey, 9.5, 10, maybe going on 11 months now, I guess 10 plus, whatever. is too long. And that, people have become numb to it. They ask why are some of the flags at half staff while others on private property are at full staff. And I believe some other communities have been flying their flag at full staff, even though the governor's orders are such. And it's just, if this is the perfect time, because this pandemic is going to be like when polio struck, or any of these other crippling viruses. It's going to last for years. There's going to be outliers that are going to come down with it. And if someone comes down with it, sure as shooting, someone's going to pass from it. And sad as that may be, at what point do we say, okay, we need to get back to normalcy, even though people are still passing away from this horrible, horrible disease. So right now, we're inoculating people. We've got pretty much all of our hospital workers inoculated. This is the perfect time. We're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. We don't know how long this tunnel is, but if you get the governor to say, hey, yeah, this is a good time to raise the flags again and seed the fact in our minds that while things are still dark, normalcy is somewhere out there, and we're getting glimpses of it, and bigger glimpses day by day.
Well, and that's why the suggestion came up that if he wants to continue doing something, it should be the state of Illinois flag.
More confusing, but so anyway, Didech is going to go forward with that, and there's an article in today's Tribune, or probably I guess tomorrow's, because it was released electronically, that talks about Didech's request to his constituency to provide him. So he's continuing to market it, and he feels confident though that he'll be able to get legislation through this next term. And if people have ideas or grave concerns about something that the state can do, that would be great. Now, with regard to the village and things that we'd like to see, I know PSEBA is number one on my list. Having the state of Illinois adopt the same definition of catastrophic loss for a recipient of PSEBA. And I think that is something. So what I was looking to do during this period of discussion here under this agenda item is to suggest that staff poll the board members and themselves and come up with a list of wrongs that need righting. That's in quotation marks. Things that we'd like to see the state of Illinois do differently, and as such,
Can I ask you, Jim? Can I ask a question? Are you talking to use the definition used for like the Social Security disability benefits?
No, it may be. What I'm talking about is there is a federal standard for catastrophic loss for public safety employees. I don't know how that matches with Social Security disability. I really don't know if there's any overlap at all. But I know that there's a standard, and it's a defined standard of catastrophic loss. And right now, because the court judgments, as it's my understanding, the court judgment created the rules that have subsequently become case law. And it was based on Lou Lang, I believe, who was the sponsor of the bill initially. His floor statements that he made during the debate on the legislation that said, we just need to take care of these people no matter what. And so that was a broad definition, and that's what the court adopted. That's my understanding. So there was the current law doesn't have a level of specificity that I believe it should have. Now that's PSEBA. There's a whole lot of other things. There's the LGDF, where and I don't know, Kyle can address this or not, but was there the 5% holdback? Because there was supposed to be a 5% holdback on LGDF because if we didn't get the Fair Tax Act or constitutional amendment passed, they were going to reduce LGDF straight up 5%. All right, let's have a no sweeps. No, they've eliminated sweeps on the sub funds, but they haven't eliminated sweeps or diminishment of the LGDF fund. And that's what 35, 40% of our budget comes from LGDF. And there's probably other things that staff is better acquainted with, but I'd like to see a list generated ASAP and submitted to the rep for his consideration. That's it.
Are you asking that question of Kyle?
No, well, the question of the board, do they want to create this list? The specific question for Kyle was there the 5% holdback?
I have not seen it yet. It's something I'm watching, but I've not seen it happen as of yet.
Okay, well, that's good. But I'd like to see that cut in granite that LGDF doesn't get hacked and whacked at.
Well, I know in the past, and I'm talking maybe 3-4 years ago before Mark, there was every once in a while, hey, give me a list of what how we get revenue. And there's a lot of different revenue sources. And we probably need to look at those to see if there's some way that the state could conceivably, bite into those even. You got, there's other, for example, like, what is it, the telephone tax or the, cell phone franchise fees and such. I don't know, is that something that we could get nicked on, and so I bet there's probably, 10 or different revenue streams that come into our community and other communities. And do we have control over all of them? You know what I'm saying? Or is there a way the state can, take a bite out of them? So, like motor fuel tax, Dave.
Yeah, so, just LGDF and PSEVA were two that came top of mind. Are there other things that, we have a problem with from the state level? I mean,
yeah,
reverting back to an hour ago when we talked about the flavored tobacco, have a recommendation that they do the investigation and do a balancing of the pluses and minuses, and whether or not Illinois should join, as Craig indicated, other states that have adopted it. I'm not familiar enough with where that legislation is with other states, but so that would be something that could be put on that list. I don't know if there's things from finance, from public works, from the police department, staff, but make that list of things that we'd like to see addressed and the kind of, quick pluses and minuses or causes and effects and whatever.
Well, unfunded mandates are always something that can nick us. Well, I don't care what department's involved,
Yeah.
So maybe Chief Crease can speak to that if there's anything coming that he's worried about that's gonna come out of our pocket instead of the state, which in this state, anything can come out of our pocket.
Yep,
So-
Mayor, I'm happy to, I think to Trustee Schultz's point, there is something that just today came up, we've been watching, but just as an example of how the, how the sausage is made, so to speak, that the Illinois Association Chiefs of Police were notified today that in the lame duck session coming up here of the General Assembly, We're concerned that there's going to be a police reform bill that might be dropped. We haven't seen it. It might be presented to us on Saturday with the vote for next week. Of course, we have a 15-item plan that we'd like to engage with our legislators on police reform. There's a lot of great ideas out there, but we've seen more than once, sometimes in a compressed time frame, things get rushed through. There's no real serious debate. And you only have to look back to 2015 when a police reform bill, including body camera language, was rushed through within less than 72 hours. I think it was a Thursday when we finally saw the language, and I think the vote was on that Saturday. And you can look at the ineffectiveness of that bill to find out why so few police departments in Illinois are wearing body cameras. Here in Vernon Hills, we just adopted this year, and I think we're the 4th one in all of Lake County, because there was not effective debate. There was not effective input from both sides. I'm very concerned that that's what we're looking at in the next week here. And Representative Didech is not the only representative on my list to call tomorrow. So I hear what Trustee Schultz is saying. I think comprehensive is important, but to your point, Mayor, some of these things come up and they come with pretty significant price tags and impacts, and we aren't given really a chance to sometimes have meaningful input.
Right.
Yeah, so the addition of the 15 points that you talk about that the chiefs would like to see as part of a comprehensive police reform, that could be, part and parcel of this. Again, no, time is of the essence.
Okay. Is there enough said on this topic?
Well, I guess the actionable item is the village manager to start collecting ideas and thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, we don't need a vote on that, do we?
No.
No. Okay. All right. What else? We got, we got one more item. Approval and passage of resolution 2021, resolution granting approval to operate an outdoor testing facility for Hawthorn Mall located at 122 Hawthorn Center Drive. Mike Atkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rapid Testing Solutions, in cooperation with Hawthorn Mall, is requesting approval of the COVID testing facility. They're requesting approval to operate for 4 months, and if demand warranted, they would come back to the board and request an extension. It should be noted that staff granted a temporary 14-day approval to operate the testing facility. Some of you may have seen the tent out there already along Town Line Road, but it was subject to formal approval by the village board, which is why they are before you tonight. As shown on the screen in front of you, the testing facility again is staged on the parking lot immediately adjacent to Town Line Road. Customers can drive under the tent, receive the tent from their vehicle, and then wait as results would be available within 15 minutes. There's representatives here from Hawthorn Mall and from Rapid Testing Solutions. And for tonight, if the board feels that the temporary use is appropriate, a motion approving the resolution attached to your packet authorizing the testing facility is recommended. And again, if you have any questions, representatives are here to answer them.
And who's Jake?
It's me, sir.
Who are you?
My name is Jacob Sadoff. I'm one of the owners of Rapid Testing Solutions.
Okay, and then we got Tom Sheehy.
Yes, sir. I'm the facility manager of Hawthorn Mall.
Okay. All right. Does the board have any questions for these gentlemen?
My concern was having seen testing and stuff on the news. How you've been working with it so far? What there isn't a lot of queuing area for people waiting in line?
So there's a good amount of queuing area. If you look on, I don't know if you can if you're able to pull up that map again. But in the area that we're at, yeah, it pulls up. In the area that we're at, there's enough room for about 5 or 6 cars and maybe 7 cars. And then in the area just to the east of that, as you know, that and again, that borders 60 Town Line Road, more cars could line up. But
There's nothing on my screen. Does anybody else have that issue?
My screen's empty also.
yeah. And I don't have control over this. I apologize. I was just, I don't know.
Mike Stordo is, okay.
There you
So if you look at where our tent is at, that's the rectangle with the 2 small box squares in the middle. Everything to the right of that is queuing area or stacking area for cars, and 5 or 6, maybe even 7 cars can be either in the tent or behind the tent in the queuing area. We do on average 6 cars per hour. That's what our average has been, not only at this location, but at our other locations. So we're not like one of those state sites that you might see where there's, where there were dozens or God forbid, hundreds of cars a month. Those free sites get a lot of people because it's free. We are a self-pay facility. So we're able to help a lot of people, but we're not getting dozens or hundreds of cars. To the best of my knowledge, we have not seen incidences where we had people even spilling over into that, into that area to the east of there. So we have not had an issue with that. If we do get more people than what can stay in line there without spilling over into the, into the perimeter drive, we have parking spots that people can wait in. But again, that hasn't been an issue. Again, we test on average 6 people per hour, and I have all of our numbers. We've tested in 8 days now of being open. We've tested 372 people. We're open 8 hours a day, so we're not really having an issue with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
What is the charge? How much are you charging per test? And what's your false positive rate?
You never really know what the false positive rate is. We're using a CLIA certified it's the best test on the market. I've heard that the accuracy rate is north of 90%. If it gives a positive, it's almost certainly a positive. The false negative rate I've heard from what's published is a little bit higher, but if the false positivity rate is very, very low. The charge is $175, which is market rate. It's very fair. But again, the tests are very accurate. They're again the best tests on the market. We're using again the BB Veritor system, which is the gold standard in rapid testing.
Is there a way to get, your health insurance to pay this in advance?
So we give them a receipt that has all of the information on it. And they can take that and submit that to their insurance, and everybody's insurance is different. But a lot of people that have come back to us have said that they had luck getting it reimbursed. So we don't make a blanket promise that your insurance will pay for it. We can't say that, but we provide all the information on that document, including the amount that they paid, the code that they would use, the CPT code that they use, and everything that they need so that they can submit it to their insurance company.
Well, is there an opportunity to get that information once again before you even go through? Did they ask your carrier if they're going to pay for this test?
There's not really a way to do that beforehand. I guess people could call their insurance provider and ask. That I'm not positive of. But
we're going to let the doctor speak to this. The Dr. Oppenheim.
So I'm pretty sure we use the same test that you do. So it's the antigen test that you're doing in 15-minute turnaround time. So the only question, well, first of all, to answer the mayor's question, yeah, the codes are out there. It's not that hard to find, and you really should just put it on your website what the CPT code is. The question is whether or not the insurance company would reimburse families fully, because I would imagine you're not in network with the insurance companies. So versus going to the family's doctor's office, which is in network, it might be fully covered. Versus yours, it's $175 out of pocket. So families have to decide, whether or not they want to do that, and they might not even be aware that it might cost them a lot more to go through you. I'm not certain about that, just because all the rules are being somewhat different during COVID days, what the government's covering, what the insurance companies are covering. So it's possible that they might cover the expense more fully, but I don't know about that.
What about Medicare? Just asking for someone.
Asking for a friend who might be under the Medicare system.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Medicare.
Oh, so it's self-pay, and again, you know, with the receipt that we provide, it might be able to be reimbursed by Medicare. That I'm not sure of, but I think the big difference between and Mr. Oppenheim, I agree with everything you said. The big difference, though, is that, you know, this is the rapid test. Most doctors who do COVID testing, and maybe your facility is different, but most doctors are doing the PCR test, which takes 3 days to 10 days to get results, and that's really where there's a shortage of you know, or where the need is right now in our community, is that people want results right away. You know, they need to go about their lives. They need to go back to work. They need to go and go shopping or do whatever they need to do, and they can't wait a week for results. So that's something that we provide that is different than a lot of these drive-through clinics, going to Walgreens or CVS or one of a number of other clinics is the rapid testing. So that's something that we're able to provide that is much needed.
So all right, so we have a lab already, guys, right next to T-Mobile. It's inside. I'm sure you're familiar, Jake, right? The Affordable Labs. I believe they're the antigen turnaround. They call you. I'm assuming you're calling them as well. They're $170-something, just like you, out of pocket. Most insurances are covering, even in or out of network, David. I've had a couple kids tested there, you know, with Blue Cross. It does cover. So, and I guess the only thing is, like you said, I've seen the Waukegan lines wrapped around all the way around Sheridan. It's ridiculous, but that's because it's free. Takes a couple days, but some would argue that test that they're doing is more accurate because they are doing deeper swab in the nasal cavity. And yes, you do have to wait to get the more positive. It's more specific. I think Dr. Oppenheim would agree with that as well.
The antigen test is not the gold standard.
Right, exactly.
The RT-PCR is the gold standard. Most of the time, the antigen test is adequate, and that's what we do. An antigen test. We also do a molecular test similar to the PCR, which is beyond the scope of this conversation. But for most families, the antigen test is good enough, except if they need it for certain things. So, like if they're flying to to Puerto Rico. I'm pretty sure certain countries don't accept the antigen test. So
Hawaii, they won't accept the antigen test
because it's not the gold standard. There's still greater.
When I said what I meant is that the BD Veritor system is considered to be the premier system within antigen tests. I do agree that PCR tests are considered to be a little bit more accurate, but again, the trade-off is that you're going to wait, several days for results, and a lot of people are, they can't wait those. I know for certain things, for traveling out of the country and for if you're having surgery, they might require a PCR test. But if you need to go about your life, go back to work, go see family, see your parents that you haven't seen in a long time, it's widely considered to be adequate to get an rapid antigen test, rather than waiting several days for a PCR test.
So how long is the permit, Mike?
The request is for 4 months. The board can approve whatever duration that you think is appropriate.
4 months.
One thing I also wanted to mention, the difference, what was mentioned a moment ago, we give our results, we hand them the results within 15 minutes. We don't call them. We hand it to them. They wait on site. We give them that sheet with everything on it, and then they drive away with results in hand.
Where's your other locations or location?
Yeah, we have 6 locations that are open, and we're opening our 7th location tomorrow. We're in Carroll Stream, in Aurora at Fox Valley Mall. We're in Crystal Lake Prospect Heights, and in Schaumburg, we're at Boomer Stadium, Wintrust Field. We've got some substantial locations. We're about to open Fox River Grove at Avante Banquet Hall in 2 days from now, and tomorrow we're opening in Chicago, right across the street from Wrigley Field. So we'll have our 7th and 8th locations opening this week, and then probably either Friday or Monday we're going to be opening at Louis Joliet Mall. So we're doing a lot of malls, and then we have a tentative deal set up for 2 other regional malls with Simon, Orland Square Mall and Gurney Mills. So we're we've got some good locations. I think we're the largest COVID testing operator in Chicagoland, and we run a really good organization, a good process, and a good good organization.
So are the people who are actually doing the test, are they nurses?
No, it's not nurses, technicians. So yeah, it's any drive-through facilities, you're rarely going to find nurses doing that. Nor would you really need to. It's a really easy process. It's a nasal swab, and what Dr. Oppenheim was explaining, I believe, which is that deeper nasopharyngeal test, which goes all the way back up to the back of your nose, nasal cavity. That's pretty invasive, or deeper. But what we do is just a real simple 1-inch deep nasal swab that anybody can do.
So I'll make a motion to approve the resolution at the 4-month time limit.
I'll second it. And not a caveat, but I'm assuming that if traffic congestion becomes a problem, you've got the space over by Sears that you could move them to overnight.
I'll actually take this one, Jake. So the reason we chose this specific location is because it would not interfere with our redevelopment.
Right.
So it actually is a good place between two entrances, so cars can move fluid without any real congestion areas. So yeah, so that's why we chose this area specifically, just to avoid any congestion. But also, we already have our construction fencing up and everything else.
Right.
So we're trying to avoid any further interruption to our customers.
All right. It seemed to be a problem today, so I'm good.
There's a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? If not, roll call.
Byrne,
Aye.
Trustee Schultz,
Aye.
Oppenheim,
Aye.
Takaoka,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Marquardt,
Aye.
Forster.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn the board meeting and go into
Before we do that,
Yes,
communications.
yes.
So sort of along the same lines of the COVID testing, I was fortunate enough to get vaccinated a couple of weeks ago. I'm getting my second vaccine on Friday, and I would encourage everyone as soon as possible to sign up on the Lake County website to get family vaccinated as soon as possible. So we have a link to it on our village website on the top under coronavirus updates. There's a link to the Lake County COVID-19 updates, but on there you'll see if anyone just wants to go straight to it, they could just Google Allvax, ALLVAX, and you'll find it on that page there on the Google page, the Lake County site, to register your family to get vaccinated as soon as it becomes available to someone in your category. So I'd encourage everyone to do that.
Well, is there any other, new business or communication to come before the board? Okay. If not, is there a motion to adjourn the board meeting and go into committee of the whole?
So made.
Second.
Go to a second. Roll call.
Didn't hear the second.
I was
Marquardt.
second.
Okay. President Byrne,
Aye.
Trustee Schultz,
Aye.
Oppenheim,
Aye.
Takaoka,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Markwart,
Aye.
Forster.
Aye.
Motion carries. Can we take a 5-minute break or something? Would anybody
idea.
have a problem with that?
No,
I
sir.
second that motion.
You want to put that in a motion? All right, well, do whatever you want.
You're in motion.
Craig, was your motion that was a second, or was that a number 2 motion?
Like to call the committee of the whole meeting to order. First item is approval of the committee of the whole meeting minutes of December 8th, 2020.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any comments or questions, deletions, additions? If not, roll call. Lynn?
President Byrne.
Aye.
Yeah. Trustees Cook,
Aye.
Takaoka,
Aye.
Oppenheim,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Markwart,
Aye.
Forster.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, Southlake Industrial Center concept presentation to revise and expand the light industrial development on properties commonly known as the Darling Farm and the Ford Club. Okay, who's taking this one on? Is this Mike Atkinson?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I can take this. As you stated, the petitioner seeks an amendment to the original PUD, which was recently approved by the village board, that would allow the relocation of Building B onto a newly assembled parcel, combines the undeveloped portion of the Darling Farm with the Forge Club property. The screen in front of you shows the originally approved site plan. The green shaded strip of land to the right, which connects to Milwaukee Avenue, is the undeveloped portion of the Darling Farm. And then to the south of that in white is the former Forge Club property. Those are the properties that they wish to expand on. Building B, you can see, is the middle building to the left. And Mike, if you could switch the slide, please. Okay, this shows Building B relocated from its original location to the newly assembled parcels adjacent to Milwaukee Avenue. The petitioner is working with IDOT and will be requesting full access to Milwaukee Avenue. However, staff believes there's a very good possibility that only a 3/4 access will be allowed. In any case, staff has asked for secondary access from the property that leads to a signalized intersection. On this site plan, you'll note from the newly assembled parcels, it shows in a dotted line an access drive that would connect directly to Corporate Woods. This is the option they're currently seeking. However, they would need to purchase another parcel north of this in order to make this work. And they are currently negotiating with that property owner. If they come to terms, great. This would be their first choice. If they cannot come to terms, Mike, if you can go to the next slide. Then they would connect via a bridge over the existing detention facility, connecting to Darling Drive. And again, you can see that in the dotted lines on the screen in front of you. To the left of your screen, you'll see the result and how they would use the land that it was vacated by Building B. This area would be used to support a large e-commerce company that is proposing to locate here. They would occupy Building A to the left and Building B to the right as well. And the vacated area in between these buildings would be used to accommodate delivery vans, storage and loading of the delivering vans. Also, it would be used for employee parking. this area would be screened on 3 sides to the east, west, and south by existing buildings and also by mature landscaping to the north. I would note there is a view corridor from the southwest adjacent to the Oaks development. Staff would look at this very closely to assure that dense screening is provided to effectively screen the outdoor area from the Oaks. Mike, if you can go to the next slide, please. Okay, this shows a close-up of the new building adjacent to Milwaukee Avenue. Note that the building would be set back 60 feet from the property line in compliance with the zoning code. Also note the 25-foot landscape buffer, again in compliance with the zoning code. And then also they would have to provide dedication to IDOT for the Milwaukee Avenue right-of-way to assure a 60-foot path dimension. This is a strategic regional arterial, so this is typically when IDOT has the opportunity to request that dedication. Mike, if you can go to the next screen, please. This is the color rendering showing the building adjacent to Milwaukee Avenue. And as you can see, this would be similar to the design of the other buildings within the development. It would utilize precast built-up panels. We have full-height glass curtain walls at the main entrances, and glass punch-out windows would serve the office areas. So again, this is just concept presentation for tonight. And if the COW feels that plans are appropriate, then the petitioner should be directed to begin the technical review process. It would then move to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a public hearing, and then back to the village board for final consideration. There are representatives here from the developer to answer any questions. And again, staff is just looking for direction on whether or not this should be forwarded to step 2 technical review.
Well, yeah, and the question is, does staff have any concerns about this particular concept site plan? Is there something like Dave Brown? Is there issues with ingress and egress?
We can go over some specific points. I might recommend that the development team kind of talks about their operations, and I think we can react to that if appropriate.
Okay. All right. Well, where's the team at?
Good evening. I'm John Pagliari. Can you all hear me?
Can't see you.
Can't see me? Can you hear me though?
Yeah.
That's good. I'm not sure why you can't see me. I think maybe I have technical difficulties, but I can see you.
That's nice.
Is there any specific questions you want me to answer? I mean, basically, you know, we're working with IDOT, as Mike mentioned, on that building E, our 5th building, if you will, on Milwaukee, and trying to work through that process with our consultant KLOA on a traffic study, and then working with that owner to the north about potentially, you know, cutting through his site to get back to Corporal Woods Drive. Our other option is to go directly to Darling Drive through our existing, you know, 90% complete detention basin. So that's building on Milwaukee Avenue. The other side, buildings A, B, and C, as Mike pointed out, you know, we are basically keeping the other 2 buildings exactly as designed, A and C, as far as the building footprints are concerned and the size, and then car and van parking where we would have had building B and a couple of the sides of the buildings A and C. So, you know, really pretty slick how we, you know, screen that car van parking from view with all the 4 buildings or the 3 buildings. And once you go one further than that, Mike, you know, where we show the updated plan, that one. Yep. So, you know, the you know, van and car parking, maybe not the most attractive thing, but, you know, everybody has it. And it's very well screened, really on all 4 sides. On the north, there's a couple of existing buildings and a heavy tree line along our new Southlake Drive there to the north. So the the access really is similar to what we had originally contemplated, you know, a southern drive aisle on the south side of A, B, and C connecting to Darling Drive there in the middle of Darling Drive. And then obviously all buildings that have access to the north, which is the Southlake Drive, which also ties back into Darling, which, you know, allows you to go north or south to Forest Edge Drive or Corporal Woods Drive. So,
Yeah, I
John,
just want to say, I really like the concept. I think it's the best thing we've seen on the Forge Club property to date. But my concern is the same one that staff has already talked about, and that is, boy, I'd sure like to see it be able to get out to Corporate Woods Parkway instead of having
yeah,
to
and
rely
we're
100% on Milwaukee.
we're trying, and we would too, you know, because that's a speculative building, and
Yeah.
you know, we don't like putting a lot of money out where we, you know, don't have good access to it. So, you know, fingers crossed, we're working with the landowner in the north who we've dealt with and transacted with previously, and you know, went well. So you know, that is our plan also. But you know, we would have the other option of going directly to Darling Drive through our pond, which, you know, isn't fantastic, but you know, it's certainly there. So, you know,
Yeah, John.
one way or the other, we'll have access back to you know, a secondary point in addition to Milwaukee access.
John, I'll work towards answering the mayor's question. I was wondering if you could touch base on your operations specifically. The board is familiar with what your previous project was, and how are you amending it, and what is different between the two?
Well, basically, the building B is no longer there, and that's a car and van parking field that the user would be using to you know, load their delivery vans and moving off site with them. So you know, like I say, all footprints are the same. A, B, A, C, and D are the exact same building footprints, where the real difference is in building B, which had cars on one side and trucks on the other. Now that's basically all cars and vans. So you know, but the access to Darling is the same, and you know, the access to those north and south roads are the same. They're not roads, they're private roads, Southlake Drive and our drive out to the south. So still very similar. And, you know, you got large user would be, you know, bringing 18-wheeler trucks in building A, and then breaking it down into delivery vans to the east of A, and then their car parking would be further east of that. So that's basically the operational use. And they, you know, try to stay off of peak hours and run all day long.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Really, I think the difference is probably the changes of potentially you have more vans now than previously. I think that's one of the operational items. To answer your question, Mayor, I appreciate that the developer is looking for the other access point, either Darling or Corporate Woods. If it was a standalone parcel and we're looking to try to take left turns to go north on Milwaukee Avenue, it's very similar to the situation with American Hotel Register. We've dealt with them to try to get a traffic signal, a backdoor access. But in our conversations with the developer, they're heeding that advice and looking to address that. The other items are essentially trying to work through the stormwater issues right now with the density of the development. We just need to work through, can they resolve that without detention within the parking lot? Let me say affirmatively, whether this is connected to the development to the west or whether it's a standalone approval on the along Milwaukee Avenue, we have been searching for trying to figure out what land use is most appropriate. I do like that we have a petitioner in front of us that is looking for something that's more connected to the business park rather than residential or some of the other proposals that have been in front of us. So I think that is a positive direction.
Yeah, I agree, Dave.
So there's discussions going on with the owner of the Forge Club parcel?
We are Bill Pagatti. You don't know him or not, but he's the owner of the Forge Club parcel. We are currently under contract with Bill. We've been out on his site. You know, did a wetland delineation. He's got a little bit of wetlands out there, as do we on our site, and you know, we're getting those all worked through with Lake County Storm. So that site is under contract.
Is that where you're going to build the building?
Well, if you see the site, the building is half on Bill's site and half on our site. You know, we both have a 5-acre piece fronting Milwaukee Avenue, both really too narrow or thin to develop an industrial building on. But when you put them together, now we have something that we can work with. And I will point out too that when we first came in, our docks were on the north side of the building. It allowed us to do a little bit bigger building. But Mike and Dave really wanted us to flip the docks to the south side of the building, kind of backing up to the back end of the Lifetime Fitness. They got their garbage compactors and some transformers and things on their north side of the building. So tying that, you know, area to that was probably a good plan in the long run. A little bit smaller building for us, but you know, now the office in our scenario here would be facing the nice pond and bank building on the corner of Milwaukee and Corporal Woods Drive. So that's, you know, some of the tweaks that we worked with staff on to get here. And, you know, really that was a good idea.
Can I ask, so that building on Milwaukee, you said the office, is that an office building or is that an industrial?
No, it's the same as the others, but you know, when we lay these buildings out, the front of the buildings are considered office where the car parking is, and the back of the buildings where the truck docks are. So, you know, there could be a 1, 2, or 3 tenant building. We'll run a sanitary line down that north side of that building, so we can put office anywhere we want along the north side where all the car parking is. So offices would face north and the docks would be facing south.
And if the approval or the agreement goes through with the other developer or owner, that would be in the northwest corner of that parcel there connecting to
basically it's north and basically north, you know, so you can see those 2 ponds that are dashed in there on either side of their connection road to Corporal Woods Drive. That's basically the parcel. It's a 3.7 acre parcel that we would use for detention and road access, and you know, maybe
that road is the northwest corner of where you're
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Make sure I'm looking at the right thing.
Yeah, there's
How
a
would
large.
you arrange the parking?
Pardon me?
How would you rearrange the parking?
Right, if the road is there.
Northwest corner.
Well, we would basically leave most of it alone. We'd probably lose 5 or 8 pieces or stalls to cut that area in. So we would, you know, maybe swoop it in, not on such a drastic turn like that, but, you know, more curvilinear. We'd lose some parking there, but not a lot.
Okay. But you're comfortable with then trucks going down the side of the building between car park and the building to get to the back side?
Yes, we would make that, you know, an extra wide aisle and have heavy duty paving underneath it to accommodate those trucks to, you know, if they wanted to go north on Milwaukee, their best bet's to go, you know, on the west side of our site, jump out to Corporal Woods Drive, get to the light and go north on Milwaukee. Most of them, you know, a lot will go take the easy path and take a right and go south. A lot of them are going back to 94. So they're going to go either 22 or 60. And if you're easier to get out of there taking a quick ride, you'll go to 22. But, you know, it's a good question.
The only other comment I have, well, from a building design standpoint, I love the punch outs near the below the parapet or below the roof line to have lighting in the warehouse space. Free lighting is a beautiful thing. So
I agree.
Incorporate that into the design. That'd be a great thing.
Right, and we usually try to. It's like you said. It looks good from the outside, and it looks good from the inside too, because you get the natural light.
Yep.
We used to do skylights all over, but they crack and leak, and they're a big pain in the butt. So we've gone to these clear story windows, as we call them.
Yep, agreed. The only other issue I've got really is on building D. Is there any way you can put that north-south parking on the east side as opposed to the west side. The reason I say that is those triangular boxes that are shown to the lower left corner, those are the apartment buildings for the Oaks. And while, you know, having the cars there isn't a big deal, depending upon the number of shifts that are run, or if there's, you know, early arrivals, you'll hear car doors slamming and whatever. I'd rather see that as far away from those residents there as possible. So
I'm sorry, I didn't see which car parking you talking about, James?
I'm talking about Building D,
Oh,
the
D.
car parking on the west side of Building D.
Right.
I'd like to see it move to the east side to get
Yeah,
it
you know,
further away
that's
from those apartments.
too late at this point. You know, that was already approved as is. And, you know, basically that road or grading is already completed with utilities already in the ground. You know, we felt, you know, instead of pushing the building further west by losing that car parking and push the building further west, we figured we put cars over there to push the building away from the town or apartments over there. So that unfortunately that train's left the station.
Yeah, that we've already approved that.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, if you guys have been out there lately, we already have the precast panels going up on that building and steel's already.
We know that.
No, I haven't been there. So
Yeah, all we're working on tonight is the B.
yeah,
Correct.
well, and A and C, because that's a change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, to clarify, maybe I could have done a little better job, but A and C are remaining same size, same location. Basically, it's building B getting relocated is.
Right.
And you know, one other thing I'll point out too, James, is that the building D elevation is about 15 to 20 feet lower than the apartments elevations, you know, as far as the grading is concerned. So there's a big drop off and there's a retaining wall over there. You see that darkened area on the west side of D. That's a retaining wall to hold back that drop in grade. So, you know, they won't even see the cars from there, you know, so we did a pretty good job, I think, of, you know, screening things from view from the residences there.
And I know you've made a contribution or are looking to work with that management company to do some additional landscaping on both sides of the property line. So
Right. Yep.
that's appreciated.
In the corner. Yep. You bet.
All right.
Are there any other comments or questions? Is it time to let,
Do we have any other, are there any other industrial buildings like this on Milwaukee? I guess we've got.
not this close to Milwaukee?
Not in Vernon Hills, I don't think.
Yeah, no, we have large office buildings, if you could picture, you know, CDW or something along those lines. And we have these types of buildings close to Route 45 too, Neal Enterprises and a couple others as well.
Mm-hmm.
But from a use perspective, this is the first development that has come forward, at least in the last 15 years, that not only complies with our comprehensive long-term land use plan, but also with the Malanaphy report. We had asked them to take a look at various properties, this being one of them, in terms of what's the best use for this property. And the best part about it is it's not residential, which it seemed like every developer that came forward wanted to do a residential use, which is really from staff's perspective, just an inappropriate use location. So, but yeah, to answer your question, Dr. Oppenheim, it's there's not many of these buildings that are adjacent to Milwaukee Avenue.
Yeah, that's like, this is the best use we've seen so far for the Forge Club property.
And the good news too is that the shorter elevation is on Milwaukee. You don't have this long, you know, 700-800 foot elevation of a building. It's basically 250 feet long. We've got some jogs, interesting jogs in the building with glass to break it up very well. It'll look great, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be sharp. Yeah.
Okay. Well, do we turn them loose to technical review?
Turn them loose.
Yeah.
Okay, Carmen, you want to give them?
Hold on, before we do that, what happens if they don't get that agreement with the other landowner and they can't do that northwest road? How do we feel about them going over the detention pond?
Well, just to correct you, we wouldn't go over the pond, we would build the pond up and, have a road going through the pond, basically. We wouldn't put a bridge over that, that'd be cost prohibitive. Right, so we would revise our engineering plans, work with Dave and his staff and, build up a road through that, in the middle of that pond, basically, to get to Darling Drive. So it wouldn't be, a drawbridge or anything, but it'll look, similar to other, roads with ponds on either side of them. Kind of like Darling Drive at the north, the north end of Darling Drive off Corporate, there's a pond on one side and pond on the other. So it'll look more permanent.
Kind of look like Greg's Landing too. You got a pond on one side and a pond on the other side of Greg's Landing.
Right. Fairly attractive. It's not cheap to come up with that, but it's, fairly attractive.
Yeah.
And Doc,
that drawbridge would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
With a moat.
Doc, that
You
is.
gotta have a moat, yeah.
Doc, that is something that we would review as part of technical review if the board does move them towards past concept to technical review.
Okay.
Looks good.
Thank you.
So Carmen, you don't have anything to say? The speech to tell them that it goes to
Yes,
concept?
that the board's consensus tonight is not a guarantee that any final decision will be made, but we welcome the concept and the board's thoughts. You'll pass through technical review and then further on and back to the board for final approval at a later meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. It looks very good.
Thank you.
It's gonna be a sharp building.
Okay. Dave, how long do you want to go?
5 minutes?
We want to go to next meeting?
Should we push it off?
Yeah.
How long is it gonna take?
I think
5 minutes.
Mark's going to present it in 5 minutes.
Well, we got 20 minutes before 10, so yeah.
All right. If you direct me, I will get started and I put it into a form. I think we get through this pretty quick.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Mike, thank you very much for pulling up the first slide. Essentially, we have put them into 8 different pages. And so we'll just go page by page because we are doing things virtually. So it's a little more easy to get through the meeting. So very first slide, we've grouped them together. Really, it's the same items that we have year after year. I will just point out the ones that are changes from other years. So the first slide in front of you is the road program. It was presented to the board before, 1.1 million, and that's included. Annual sidewalk program, proposed increase of $5,000. The Butterfield Road path, there is a commitment we made to LDOT for $150,000. They have moved forward with the initial phase of that.
And that gets us across the railroad tracks?
It will take us from the north side of the railroad tracks to Greg's Parkway. Currently, we do go across the railroad tracks with our path.
But this is basically the north Butterfield path, not the south Butterfield path.
It is from the EJ&E northerly to Greg's.
Southerly, you got to cross the street still and go on the Mundelein side of Butterfield to get to 45.
Yes, a lot of impediments for that project. This one is moving forward with LDOT. Please interrupt me if needed, or I'm going to keep going through. The next slide, please. This is our Lakeview project. We're aware that federal funding pushed it out further. So right now it's just the land acquisition part. We need land acquisition to occur before we go out to bid. It's a requirement. So there's $519,000 included for that.
And that's 2023 construction, not not 2013.
It is 20.
I'm reading from the board packet. I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you. Next slide, please. So the change here is a local drainage improvement. That was a new initiative for the current budget year. It was something that's deferred. We usually would have $25,000. We bumped it up to $100,000 because of some of the needs. So that is one thing that is a change. Harvey Lake Bridge, there has been discussions for many years. It's been on the 5-year plan to construct a footbridge. With the inclusion of the footbridge, we can get around the entire lake. And so that is $180,000.
And that bridge would be built on the residential side or on Lakeview side?
The struggle is at the southwest corner of the lake. That's the outfall of the lake. And then when you get to the center south area, there's a forebay, and we would have a crossing there too. There are some piers there already from the prior ownership. Crabtree Lane culvert lining, it's at the end of life, and it's a CMP pipe. We would like to line that before there's some catastrophic type failures. So that is something that's important.
Can I interrupt?
Okay, go ahead.
When Jim was talking earlier about the bike path, it already goes across the EJ&E, the bike path.
It does.
Yeah, and then it goes parallel. Isn't that the bike path, or is that just a walking? No, it's a bike path. That's parallel to Sycamore, just south of the homes there.
Yes, you're 100%.
I'm sorry.
Correct. The path goes along Public Works. It crosses the EJ&E, and then it goes through the rear yards along, paralleling the north side of the railroad. What we'd like to do is connect to that system and extend along Butterfield Road.
Right. So it already does cross EJ&E. It's
does.
just yeah.
Right. We don't cross the south or CN track.
South?
Yeah, south of 60.
Right.
Butterfield does come south of 60.
Yeah. Right.
But
Oh, yeah.
south of 60. There is a town of Vernon Hill south of 60.
No, I thought you were just, but that's not what they're talking about. He's talking about.
This project is different, Jim. This is up by
Yes.
Greg's.
Yes.
Yeah, there's just west of Greg's.
Right. That's why I said it was the north Butterfield project, not the south.
Okay, I thought you were just wondering, does the bike path cross EJ&E? And so it does do that.
Very good. Any other questions? Mike, next slide. Okay. Go back one slide, please. I'll come back to that. Next slide. Okay, we will come back to the Metro Station Village Hall. What this slide is showing is the irrigation pump repairs, $100,000. We recently replaced the variable drive. It's a older system. This is something, if approved, I want to go back and spend some time talking to Kemper in terms of the system. We think that the variable drive reduced some of the water hammer on the irrigation system that's in the ground. We think that that probably resolved much of the problems. This is something that the existing system is so old, at what point is it going to fail? That's what I want to chase down with Kemper and with Kemper's maintainer, Chris from Watertronics.
Yeah, that would be great if you could reduce the hammering, because this year wasn't bad. I think he only replaced 10 or so. Last year he replaced like 20 different heads and joints, which is like a 2-day out of pocket for their staff, for the ground staff at the municipal courts, which is a lot when they only have a 3-man staff.
Yes, sir. Other items, Toro Sand Pro 5040 is something they're proposing, 21,000. It replaces a 2008 unit, and it served its useful life. So I agree with Kemper's recommendation on that. Golf course utility vehicle, their existing utility vehicle is a older one. It needs replacement. Rather than having a new one for them, what the proposal is for us to share our 2008 Bobcat. It would work very well for them. And what we'd like to do is, in our public works budget, purchase something to replace our Bobcat that would help with sidewalks as we expand over to Milwaukee Avenue. What it will do is allow for a third sidewalk machine. It's hard for us to keep up once we expand. I think we're okay now, but I think next year we do need to expand our sidewalk clearing program. Trans Pro trailer, $1,700. They need that to transport it from place. And then Arbor Theater is the last item. I'm showing $40,000. It would be for the second waterfall repair. The other one went well, and we asked them while they're out there to take a look at the other ones. And as we looked at things closer, there is a second waterfall that we do need to work on. We found out insurance requirements are more than they typically would pay. So instead of 40,000, that really needs to be 45,000.
Can I ask a question that we addressed, I think, last year after budget? Are we gonna, are we gonna have to go through some capital improvement budget cuts again?
We will always look towards deferring where we can. We will work with Mark in terms of putting together a prioritization list. And as you go through the operation budgets for the individual departments, we will have a better feel for what should be what our expenditures would be, and whether or not we can afford some of these capital items. So I will prioritize them as part of the budget process.
Okay.
Thank you. If no other questions, next slide, please. Metro Station. Okay, so we're Metro Station, tennis court contribution to the Park District. That was deferred from the current budget. It's $75,000. We do anticipate renovations for next spring. We've talked to the Park District. They are preparing bid specifications and talking to different people to perform that work and getting it bid out for construction over the spring, so it would be available for the summer. Let's see. Exterior, okay, so now for the Village Hall, exterior painting, staining, and caulking, $25,000. That's something this building really needs. And then carpeting of the offices is proposed at $82,000. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, Comp Center, Police and Public Works Facilities. The Comp Center flat roof is 25 years old, and it's $200,000 to replace. We would use we would use the same system as we did for our Public Works building. The replacement boilers, $90,000. that's something that's in dire need. And then in terms of some of the police department needs is painting of the cell block at the police building itself, $25,000. That was not included when the police building was expanded. And then another item is the firing range backstop, $100,000. It helps the police department to utilize their rifles, and they don't have to travel to an external location. Sirens, $36,000 to first tackle the Route 45 and Fairway Drive siren. And then the following year, we would go to the high school, and then we would be done with the program with the sirens.
With regard to the boilers, are we anticipating any ancillary costs like we absorbed with Village Hall, converting things, VAV boxes, et cetera?
We are not proposing to do that. It's strictly with the boilers itself.
Okay, so we're comfortable with the HVAC. It's just that the boilers have reached their life expectancy.
That's my understanding, but let me research a little bit further, and I'll supply you with some answers.
Okay.
Boiler.
I got a question going back to the police building. Is there any, I guess, new rules and regulations pertaining to the exhaust in the firing range?
Sure, Mayor, that's actually being addressed this budget year. In fact, that project is underway, and we will have a completely updated state-of-the-art ventilation system installed probably by the end of this month.
What's the cost on that?
I believe the total cost to upgrade everything there is about $160,000. The board approved several months ago.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Excuse me.
Gesundheit.
Yeah. Okay, Dave.
And then the Public Works building, painting the interior, $20,000. We would be hitting some areas that haven't been painted for 15 plus years. Next slide, please. Okay, the VHAC, staining buildings and the dugouts, $20,000. Musco lighting for the original fields 1 through 4. It would be going through the controls and having it more supported like the other fields are. It's a different program, and we'd like to change the controls. That would be $20,000. Phillip Road, the police department is requesting a impound lot to, it's $60,000. It would be up against the east side of the Phillip Road building, west of the CB ditch. There might be some stormwater things we have to work through to affect that change, and we'll research that.
Is that going to be a revenue generator?
Chief?
No, sir, that is not going to be a revenue generator. We're required when we seize vehicles under certain circumstances to hold them. The state has taken over much of the regulations, and we have to answer to the state on when we can release. There is some revenue generated when a vehicle is seized under certain criminal functions, but that is shared with the state, and presently we just aren't we are not well suited. The risk is if we leave a vehicle in a third party's hands, we incur pretty substantial storage fees to leave it in someone else's hands.
But we don't need to put an interior, right? We don't need to provide a cover over it.
No, sir, but we do need secure storage, and so a substantial portion of this cost is fencing and screening to make sure that someone's not released and they don't walk right by and see where their vehicle is stored.
Oh, if you want for-profit storage, the vehicle goes to Ernie.
That's correct. And we could wind up with the tab. The village could wind up with a pretty substantial tab when the storage cost exceeds the value of the vehicle.
Right. Okay.
Moving forward, the last items, Phillip Road, same area. Now that we have a clean bill of health from the EPA, and it's been transferred from the Park District to the village, we'd like to put a real asphalt parking lot down as compared to the gravel that's in many of the areas of the parking lot. That would be $40,000. The existing fence is 3 or 4 different types of material, and parts of it are in really bad disrepair. So $40,000 to replace that. The trees that are growing through the fence and around that area need to be cut back. We probably can do most of that in-house. It's more for the replacement. That would be $15,000. That'd get us approximately 30 trees. So that is my portion of the presentation. Kyle, there's some quick IT items you may have.
Dave, I got a question on this parking lot in the old Park District Maintenance Building. Is there a cost going to be associated with stormwater drainage, or is this just sheet draining?
We are looking to just sheet drain the parking lot, keep it in its same condition. If we don't greatly exceed the existing impervious surface, we would not have to add detention.
Okay.
I'd like to go back to C, the street lighting. Are we going to do any LED updates?
Let's see, LED roughly. We are the Old Grove Farms LED fixtures and poles would be $83,000.
And is that this year?
It would be this year. Some of why we're selecting this subdivision, and we just took care of another one, was some of the Sternberg poles are starting to rust out from the bottom, and they're in dire need of replacement of the whole pole. And while we do that, we have been converting to LED.
Okay. What percent of the town is on LED now? 10%? 20?
I think we'd be closer to 5 or 10%. Kyle, IT items?
Yeah, well, yep, let's go. Can you go to the last page on the presentation for me real quick, Mike? Just real quick on this, I always look at the IT area falling into 3 specific areas. The majority of what you see here is replacement of items that have reached or surpassed their useful life. And so at this point, we need to get those replaced so that we keep our infrastructure intact. The couple newer items that I just will point out is additional sand upgrades for both PD and Village Hall. We are getting into a much larger digital era, and so we do have a much larger demand for storage, and so we do need to continue to expand our sand so that we have that storage. And the last one is the top one, which is the QNAP physical storage. The village has been looking into how to better plan for disaster recovery. Disaster recovery is the concept that you need to store your critical data, like your server data and all that data offsite at a remote location in case of a physical disaster or cyber disaster. And so there is the $20,000 in the next fiscal year to look at options to make sure that the critical data of the village is protected. That was the high level on the IT, and I'm available for any questions.
The CCTV cameras.
Yep.
That's additional cameras, replacement of
replace it.
existing.
It's replacement of a handful of cameras that have reached their useful life and are actually starting to have problems. And so we need to get those replaced so that the system is fully in operation.
So it's just replacement. It's not additional.
Yeah, it's not new, it's replacement.
Is the SAN upgrades hardware?
Yeah, so in essence it's network storage. So it's like the storage on your computer. We need more of it because we're having more saved digitally.
I get that. What about the cloud? Are villages or municipalities going to the cloud as far as storage versus do these hard, the hard SAN?
The difficult part is with the SAN is you normally want those on site for speed of data, getting the data out in the network so that it's faster for staff to work. We are looking at the QNAP option, which is that disaster recovery. We are looking at a cloud option in lieu of a physical storage. Just for that standpoint of, the concept, it might be nicer to store our data somewhere that's not regional if we have a regional disaster. So we are looking at cloud options and, just candidly, technology in general and software in general is going more and more cloud-based. And so that will be something that occurs over time as well, as software does change with the village. So this is a need we have now. That need for SAN storage in the future may change. But SANs normally have about a 2 to 3 year useful life as it is. So that will be something that we continue to monitor as we look at software changes going in the future.
Kyle, can I jump in here real quick? I'd just like to add to Trustee Takaoka's question. There are certain components of what we are generating new data, and it is stored in the cloud. And a real good example of that is our in-car mobile video and our body-worn video. As you can imagine, all of that video storage requires tremendous space. And the system that we use, a significant portion of that expense is for the cloud-based storage, very secured, law enforcement approved cloud-based storage. So you're onto something there. It's a good question, and where it makes sense and where there is a good infrastructure set up for cloud storage, we'll continue to explore those options, because in the long run, it probably is less costly than investing in on-premise storage.
Okay. All right, any other comments or questions?
Same sort of question for the CCTVs, those cameras. I mean, is that old technology or is that new technology that we're looking to replace them with?
I know a little bit about this, and if you'd like some more information, we could provide a little more presentation. But I know part of the cost here is we have a portion of our camera system is still on an analog. They're pretty old cameras that then go through digital converters for their storage. We're looking at bring all of that up to digital. We don't keep, and the way the new cameras, the digital cameras work is if there's no change in the image, it doesn't run a continuous 24/7. So it's motion based. So if there's no change, there's no real storage. It's only when there's change. So for instance, an empty cell, and most of our cell blocks sit empty for a long period of time, very much efficient to store that data in a digital format rather than an analog format. So that's part of this infrastructure upgrade.
So, but what that costs though, so is that buying old cameras or is that in order to upgrade to digital?
That's correct. It's replacing the old hardware, the cameras and the converters and the DVRs and those systems that are not fully total digital right now, to an all digital system.
Okay, good.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? We don't need a vote on the capital improvement budget, right?
True.
No, you're not.
Right, okay. All right, well, is there a motion to adjourn committee at all?
So made.
Second.
Motion is second. Those that are in favor indicate by aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? The ayes have it. The committee, the whole meeting is adjourned. Okay, everybody, thank you, and I'm sure we'll
In a
be.
couple of weeks.
We'll be
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, yeah.
Yep. Thank you all very much for your input and suggestions.
Okay. Anytime. All right.
And I'll see you tomorrow, sir.
Yeah, I know.